Chapter 31. Brad POV. Bloody Eddie and Timber couldn't, it seemed, stay in control of themselves where Isabel was concerned. Had yet again lost all control, only this time in a damned hotel stairwell of all the bloody places. Harry had reported that Izzy had come hurrying in through the hotel's front doors, a telltale sign that Eddie had found her. He'd also reported to Bradley that Eddie had not been that far behind her, had strolled into the hotel casually, like he was in fact in full control of himself, but then Izzy had gone and run from the man, actually run from him and his wolf. Right into that stairwell, and it had set Timber off on a game of hunt the prey. Not only had Eddie taken what he wanted from his human back in Maine, now Timber, his wolf, had even managed to get her to lay claim to him. When she had, his bloody wolf had mated her right there in the damned stairwell on the 7th floor, as loud as anything. All growling and snarling, Timber right on the surface. On the bright side, the woman had not resisted him, actually mated him back, and actively so, and thoroughly enjoyed it from all reports. The woman was currently asleep in Eddie's bed, in their hotel suite. At least he had seen that Timber had not marked her. That would be a proverbial nightmare. With only days to the full moon, it was pretty damned clear that he and his wolf were completely out of control. They had better send her out come this full moon. If not, they were getting themselves a chosen mate at the order of their alpha, whether they liked it or not. Seeing that both Eddie and his wolf were mated to her, but somehow, Bradley didn't think the man really cared about any of the consequences. He just needed her, and it showed. His wolf had also demanded she lay claim to him, actually told her his name, and told her to say it, and she had. Then they just carried that girl right into the hotel suite on the top floor. She'd been completely exhausted from being mated by Timber, and they'd just tucked her into their bed. She'd better stay there, or she was likely going to end up marked and turned in a matter of days. Eddie had gone off to shower, and Bradley was standing in the hotel room's living area, waiting on the man to reappear, but he appeared to be in no rush whatsoever. Eddie strolled out of his room, dressed in light gray slacks and a white short-sleeved dress shirt, closed the door to his room, didn't even look concerned about what his bloody wolf had done, surfaced completely and mated a human. His wolf should know better, he knew Eddie did, glared right at his gamma. He was too damned relaxed from mating her to care about anything, smiled right at him. Pleased with himself, it seemed one mate tracked down Brad, one to go. Eddie told him simply, "I'm good to help you with Piper." "Well, isn't that good to know, Edward?" Bradley snapped at him. "The human, really. You just let Timber mate her out in the open for all to see." Bradley was more than annoyed with his gamma. "I couldn't stop him," Eddie shrugged. "She ran, I did warn her not to, but she did it anyway." The man shook his head. "You try stopping your wolf when that happens. Your mother will beat you senseless, and I am going to let her. I should bloody do it myself, but lucky for you, I'll likely need you today, and at your best. Are you going to be?" "Yes, Timber is really calm and well settled, I'm good," he nodded. No big surprise that his wolf was calm and settled right this minute. "Good," Bradley muttered. He was still annoyed with his gamma, but there wasn't much he could do about it now, too bloody late. Turned to Cooper and Harry, who had been trying to keep both guests and hotel staff out of that damned stairwell at all costs. Interrupting wolves mating was a deadly game. They were now both in this hotel room as well. "Did either of you manage to find out what room Piper is in?" "Yes. The hotel's receptionist was forthcoming, 6th floor, room 17. It's a family suite, likely where Izzy is also staying." Cooper smiled at him. Bradley nodded. He had no idea how this was going to go, looked at the three of them, didn't think it was wise to have her open that door and find all four of them staring at her. "Coop, Harry, stay here. I'll link you if I need you." "Don't wake Izzy," Eddie commented as they walked out of the room. "The plan, Brad?" "To knock on her door and see what reaction I get." "I'm not expecting a good reaction. The movers were arrested last night. Piper's neighbor called her and told her what was going on. I don't know if she knows it was me, or if she thinks it was Timothy. He was the one threatening her." "So, wait and see then." "Yes, just be ready, Eddie." Timothy also stated that Aspen surfaced because of the threat he posed to his mother. "I don't need him wolfing out here in a hotel, so keeping her calm and presenting ourselves as no threat is what I want. He told his gamma. All right, do you want me in sight or not? I don't think that will matter. Stand wherever you want. Just feel out the situation if you can. That is, I don't know how you'll feel or what you'll be able to sense with her. You stated you couldn't figure it out back then, find her, right? Correct. Eddie nodded at him, but she'll be right in front of me, and I know who she is now, it should be all right. He sounded pretty confident. Bradley stood right in front of her room. His hearing was tuned into the room. On the bright side, hotel rooms were not soundproofed, so their hearing allowed them to detect what was going on inside that room. The TV was on, and he could hear them talking about things Brandon wanted to do, wondered how keen her wolf senses were. He could pick up when his men were outside his hotel room before they came in. Though he did have alpha senses, much stronger than normal wolf senses. Took a breath in and let it out slowly, knocked on the door to room 617, 2 simple raps with his knuckle. Hopefully it was light and casual sounding to her ear. Maybe she would think it was Izzy coming back. Heard her walk to the door and just open it, watched as she stood frozen to the spot as her eyes landed right on him, saw anger in her expression a second later. Well, that was better than fear and pain, he thought to himself. Morning, Piper. Bradley smiled right at her, a genuine smile, soft and gentle, as he took her in. She was wearing a pair of light blue slacks and a cream-colored silk blouse. He realized that every time he had seen her, she'd been dressed smart casual. Her hair was pulled up, today, in a high ponytail. How dare you? She suddenly hissed at him, all angry. Wondered if she, too, was trying not to set Brandon's wolf off. Dare I what? He asked calmly. He needed clarification before he jumped to the wrong conclusion. Move my things, you have no right. She hissed at him again. That. Bradley nodded, so she didn't know it was him. Well, I would like you to come home, so I thought I would. She cut him clean off. Leave, I don't belong to your pack anymore. You have no hold over me. He sighed out loud. Piper, please, I just want to talk to you. A sit down is needed. No, it's not, just leave. Was glaring right at him. Not without you, Piper. He left Brandon out of that statement. Bradley didn't want her thinking this was only about the boy. Get a dress elsewhere. She stepped back and went to shut the door. Put his hand right on that door and stopped it from closing. My little sister loves your dresses, Piper. Desperately wants one. Wanted in fact to meet you in person, he told her calmly as he pushed the door open once more. His strength far outweighed hers. Saw her frown right at him and his actions or his words, he was not certain of which. Hadley is my little sister. He stated openly. Hoping that this would help clear things up and ease some of the tension, was not going to drag this out. Needed to get her home, to safety. Saw movement behind her and let go of the door. He didn't want to appear as a threat when he actually wasn't one. He saw Brandon look right at him. He smiled gently right at the boy. Really wanted her to acknowledge him as the boy's father, but knew she wasn't going to. Mom, everything is fine. Go watch TV. The man was just leaving. He heard Piper tell their son. Piper. Bradley sighed. I'm not leaving. I just want the chance to talk to you about you coming home. He told her of his intent. Saw the boy frown now, look from his mother to him, and wondered if he was old enough to figure it out for himself. He did have the same eyes as the boy, and his comment about her coming home could be taken more ways than one. Benson's head was up inside his mind. Looking at Brandon now, this was the closest they had ever been to him. He was maybe 10 feet away. A part of him itched to touch the boy, hug him, he realized. Knew Piper would likely stop him, likely to step right in front of the boy. I'm not going anywhere with you, leave, she told him and grabbed the door. He frowned right at her, saw the boy's eyes flicker between his and Aspen's. He was, or his wolf was getting agitated. Felt Benson stand all the way up inside his mind, pushed forward, snapped his hand out to halt the door and stare right down at the boy. There it was, the connection to the boy's wolf, his own boy. Benson could now sense his own pup inside that boy, was looking right at him, in fact, as he looked right back at Benson. Watched as the boy's wolf surfaced all the way, thought it was curiosity until a massive snarl ripped out of him. Aspen was perceiving Benson as a threat. Benson tilted his head to one side. He was only young and of no threat. Mine, his wolf suddenly stated in his gravelly voice, claiming the child as his own. Heard Piper actually curse under her breath, and Bradley nearly laughed. How did she think she was going to hide the boy when they were face to face as wolves? So freaking cute she was. Saw Aspen tilt his head right back and stare up at Benson's son. Benson stated again, laying claim to what was his, actually saw Aspen retreat away, and then Brandon stepped right behind his mother out of sight. Benson's eyes followed his every move, then lifted right to Piper's, once the boy was out of sight. Huffed in annoyance, she had run away with his son, rejected them and their pack, but had bared him a son, the heir to the pack. Stared right at her, long and hard, then reached out to touch her, only to have her take a step back away from him. Huffed again in annoyance, Bradley knew his wolf only wanted to touch her, to see what she felt like to him, just wanted to know if she was still his mate or not. Dropped his hand and receded back, allowing Bradley to have control once more. That was interesting, he commented softly. We need to have a sit-down chat, Piper. No, she shook her head. Do you think my wolf is going to allow his own son to remain as a rogue, out here and unprotected? Go away. Leave us alone, she stated. Felt Eddie's hand on his arm. She was getting upset and could see it. I can't do that, Piper. Your son is my son. He's the future heir to the pack. Watched her shake her head, wondered if it was denial or just didn't want that for her child. Her life had not been easy inside his pack. Getting her to come home, he knew was going to be difficult. Piper, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. Bradley told her, and honestly, he wasn't. I'm just concerned about your and his safety is all. Please at least talk to me about coming home. I have a life. Go back to where you came from. Just stay away from me. Piper, I can't do that. We really need to talk, and not just about our son. There are other pressing concerns as well. There is nothing I want from you, leave. She stated flatly and closed the door, and he allowed her to this time. She needed a minute to absorb the current situation. He also needed a minute. Her words had actually hurt him, caused him physical pain, which could only mean their mate bond was still active. Otherwise, those words would have just rolled off of him with nothing more than annoyance. She's scared. Eddie commented quietly via the mind link. Our bond is still intact. Her words caused me pain to hear them. Actually hurt me. He sighed right back. She was his mate. He mind-linked Cooper and Harry to come and stand guard at each end of the hotel corridor of the 6th floor. Took the elevator back up to his suite to give her time to calm down, left Eddie in the elevator. There would be no getting off that floor without him knowing it. It also kept her and the boy protected, should anything else happen. That being said, she'd lived out here unprotected and alone all this time, been safe as far as he knew, sighed heavily. That did not mean she had been unharmed by others. Harper didn't show herself. Benson huffed inside his mind. Might take some time, Benson. They were traumatized a lot inside of our pack. I didn't do that. His wolf shot at him, sounded very annoyed with him. I didn't know, Benson. You yourself know this. Still your fault. His wolf snarled right at him and stalked off to the back of his mind. It was true. His wolf had never even once looked at a she-wolf. It was all Bradley's doing. Now his own wolf was ticked off with him, because not only was their bond still intact, his mate had not surfaced to claim him, not even surfaced to look at him. She would know, would still be able to send him out in fact. Bradley was going to have to try again. Aspen had retreated when Benson had laid claim to him. That was interesting to him. Perhaps he felt the connection as well. It had also not escaped Bradley's attention that Brandon had stepped right behind his mother, scared, he thought. Right this minute, Bradley was certain that the boy had never had any good interactions with wolves, likely none at all, until Alpha Timothy and that man had done nothing but threaten the two of them. He was going to have to show Brandon that not all wolves were a threat to him and his mother. Though what she was telling him right now was anyone's guess, he was certain the boy would believe that they were his father. His own wolf would be able to confirm that, even if Piper didn't, though she had not denied his words when he'd stated, our son, likely she was not going to lie to the boy, a start he guessed. Wondered if he could get her to come up here and help explain things to Izzy about Eddie. He could try that angle, he supposed, just needed to be able to have any interaction with her. She was denying their bond. Likely out of self-preservation. Likely what she had tried to do for years. He sighed as he prowled around in his suite, wondered just how much time he should give her to calm down, to adjust to the realization that he now knew about the boy. Likely, she thought, he still didn't know what she was to him. That would be more difficult to clear up. She knew he could not smell her, likely understood no one could, had been unscentable since she was 10. With wolves relying on their sense of smell to recall who others were, they could tell just by walking past another wolf who they were, even without looking at them, could tell if a group of them were related to each other, whether they had their wolf yet. Hell, even what rank they were, could be discerned by just the smell of them. Piper was under no illusion about the fact that he couldn't send her out, though he was very certain she could smell him, had been able to since the very first time he walked into her studio in Portland. Chapter 32. Piper POV. To deny it. Brandon was looking right up at her. She knew he now had questions about Bradley, whose wolf had just laid claim to his wolf. It was likely that if Ben's son felt the connection, so did Aspen. She sighed and waved him to go and sit down. She was not going to be able. His wolf would never believe her, not now that they had come face to face with his own father. Is that man? Saw him bite his lip. Your father. Piper finished his question for him. Yes, he is. She nodded. He didn't know about me, did he? Watched as those eyes, so like his father's, turned right to her. No, I never told him. To be honest with you, Brandon, I was never going to either. She told him truthfully. Why not? Is he mean like those others? Sounded worried. It's just complicated, is all. Piper could not tell him. That man out there would never recognize her as his mate. Had yet to even explain to him what a mate was, or how that worked even. Didn't want to. Not really. Not with the way her life had turned out. Had all intention of living as a human. Had been raising him human. Seemed to be the best option. He'd not ask any questions till he was old enough to understand. Then he could take it all in and make a decision for himself, how he would choose to live. He'd already asked her about her pack, and she'd told him it was better for her and Harper to not be in one. She'd meant that, it was the truth. He'd seemed to understand and accept it. Now faced with his father, who'd laid claim on him, told her he wanted them to come home, or at least sit down and talk about it. Brandon had heard all of that. He'd been standing right behind her. His small hand had been clutched into the back of her blouse. He was likely scared and confused. Is he going to leave us alone? Brandon asked quietly. Unlikely. She shook her head. Wolves. How did she explain this to him? Are possessive creatures and... Inside a pack there is a leader to those wolves that live there. He's the boss, isn't he? Yes, he's what you call the pack alpha wolf. Everyone inside that pack does what he tells them. But you didn't? Brandon frowned at her. Piper half smiled. Trust her boy to be so bright. I'm not a pack member anymore. Not for a long time. Even before I knew about you. I left long ago. I'm not. He can't tell me what to do anymore. Not really. And you don't want him to. He sounded a bit confused. Piper shrugged. I chose to leave, for Harper and I. We were sick and dying inside that pack. She said we had to leave the pack to survive. Watched him sit and think for a long time. Did he hurt you? Is that why you left? He finally asked. That was a very difficult question to answer, because yes, Bradley had hurt her so very many times. But Bradley had also not known who she was to him, so he had not known he was hurting her, that he was the one to make her sickly and dying. If she said no to Brandon, he was likely going to ask her why she left him then, and if she said yes, he was likely going to want to know how. Like I said, it's very complicated, Brandon. No, it's not. Did he hurt you? He asked again, like hit you. No, not ever. She shook her head. That man couldn't hit something he didn't even know existed. She didn't even know what type of man he was. Not really. She had desperately tried to stay away from him, tried to ignore their mate bond in the hope it would dissolve itself away to nothing. No such luck. Let's just say he had another woman. That was of more interest to him, and he had Bianca. They had learned to stay away from the pack house, so she hadn't had see them together. Oh, it sounded like there was sadness etching his one word. She hugged him and pulled him onto her lap. Don't worry about it. It was a very long time ago. though it still hurt her to this day. He wants us to come home, he leaned on her. I heard him, and she had. She also knew that he was never going to leave Brandon with her, out in the human world away from him. Bradley had used the word heir, which meant the man was already thinking that he would train Brandon to take over the pack one day. She didn't know what to do, did not want to immerse herself into pack life once more, be non-existent and invisible yet again. At least out here in the human world, she was recognizable, and people not only wanted to meet her, wanted her to work for them. Appreciated what she could do, stopped and talked to her, sought her out all the time. She was part of their society and recognized as such. She'd made a good life for herself, one where she was not at all invisible. Humans did not rely on their sense of smell to recognize each other. They actually used their eyes, looked at what a person looked like, used that to recognize others around them. The humans could see her right away. It was a good feeling. Something that she had craved growing up inside the pack, something she'd never gotten. There had been a few wolves like Renee who had seen her. She didn't know why. Perhaps their sense of smell was damaged, and so they used their eyes to recognize she was there and stepped around her. Is he going to make us? I like my friends. Piper smiled at him. I know you do. Got lots of them. Always popular. She liked that for him. Doubted it would be the same inside the pack, especially if he was just like her, alpha wolf or not. No one would scent him. No one would recognize him, and she did not want that at all. He too was better off out in the human world, where people would see him. Can we just leave? Brandon asked quietly. Unlikely. Piper sighed heavily. She'd seen Edward. He could well be out there in the hallway still. That thought brought her to Izzy. She had not returned this morning and should have by now. Likely she was wherever Eddie's room was. If he'd spotted her, he would have gone off to retrieve her. He'll have his most loyal men watching you. Me? He frowned up at her. Why me? Yes, you, Brandon. You will be his top priority now. Getting you into his pack. That is what he wants, now he knows about you. Why? It's a pack alpha wolf thing. Aspen is like him, his type of wolf. Aspen is an alpha wolf. What does that mean? He asked. That is a very good question. It means that your father one day will expect you to take over the running of the pack. He'll want to hand it down to you, I suppose. What if I don't want that? I don't know, she shrugged, and Piper did not. Had no doubt that Bradley and his wolf wanted their son in their pack, would likely be worried about someone finding out about the boy and trying to get to him. But no one knew, so he was safe. They'd had no trouble at all in all these years for unscentable, meant invisible, so a kind of given protection from otherworldly creatures and not just wolves, all of them that relied on their sense of smell. Will I get a choice? Is he going to take me away from you? Piper had no idea about that either. Bradley had sent movers to move all their belongings, stated he wanted her to come home, so maybe she would still get to raise him as long as she was inside the pack that was. I don't know, honestly. Wolf-in-law status, he has every right to just come and take you. I have no status, no pack, so it's in his favor, I guess you could say. I don't want to live with a stranger. He whispered and hugged into her. I don't want that either. Piper told him truthfully and hugged him back. Guessed she was going to have to actually sit down and talk to Bradley. Not that she wanted to, did not want to be in the same room as him. She could still smell him, and so damned strongly. She didn't understand that. She was positive the rejection she had voiced was in effect, or she would have felt every time he was with another, and not once since she'd left that night had she suffered those pains, and, to be honest, she was thankful for that. It would likely have cost her, her son. Her pregnancy wouldn't have survived those pains, and that would have killed her and her wolf. She just sat there and let Brandon cuddle into her. He was quiet, as was she. How's Aspen doing? Piper asked after a little while. She'd seen him back away after being claimed. Confused. Did he understand what happened? Yes, said that wolf was his father. He's quiet now. But okay, she asked. Confused, Brandon repeated. It was only going to be a matter of time before Bradley came back and knocked on the door, glanced at her watch. Still no Izzy. That bothered her too. What if the woman was terrified, being held hostage or prisoner by Edward? Fished out her phone from her pocket and called Izzy's numbers. It was answered by a man, Izzy's phone. She frowned. "Edward?" she asked. "Yes, Piper." She realized her name would have lit up the screen. "What's up?" She shook her head. He spoke to her like they were friends. "What have you done with Izzy?" she asked. "Izzy is fine. Sleeping upstairs in my bed is all." "Sleeping?" she questioned. Heard him chuckle. "Yes," she exhausted. "Piper is my mate and well." "You're an asshole, Edward. She's human." She snapped at him and ended the call. Found Brandon staring at her with concern. She sighed. "Aunt Izzy is fine, just." "Did you see that other man at the door earlier?" He nodded. "Blonde guy." "That's him, apparently taken a liking to Aunt Izzy, and she's in his hotel room upstairs." "He's not human." He frowned at her. "Is Aunt Izzy like us?" "No," she shook her head, "but sometimes wolves and humans attract to each other. Like boyfriend, girlfriend." "Yes, that man, Edward, wants Aunt Izzy for his wife, you could say." Brandon was really frowning now, but she doesn't know him. What, he is right? "I know, only met him twice before, I think." "Wolves are different to humans when it comes to relationships. It's complicated." "How does that work?" He seemed suddenly curious. "Let's leave that one alone for now. You're too young for that conversation." He poked his tongue out at her, and she smiled at him. At least he'd cheered up a bit. Chapter 33. Bradley POV. Bradley stood once again before Piper's room. He'd left her be for a solid 2-hour period, which should give her the time to adjust to not only him being there and wanting to talk to her, but also to the knowledge that he knew about Brandon. Consider the offer to come and have a sit-down talk with him. Would have also given her time to think about him wanting her to come home, move back to the pack. He was hoping that this time he would actually get an introduction to his son as well. That was a pressing concern for him. She had not once even so much as opened her hotel door or attempted to leave. Likely knew she was going to be watched by his unit now, something he knew she was not going to like at all. But he had no choice at this point. He was not going to leave her or his son out here unprotected for anyone to snatch away from him, when he had just tracked her down himself. Piper had tried to call Izzy to check on her. He thought. She had not come back from her trip to the new store, likely worried about the woman. Eddie had answered Izzy's phone, didn't want her ex calling her, and he got the distinct impression that man was not going to just walk away from Izzy. So was intending on answering the phone when he called, just to put that man right in his place and tell him to get lost. Apparently, Piper had called him an asshole due to the fact that Izzy was human and he had taken her for himself and claimed the woman. Piper would know the rules. They were all schooled inside the pack in humans, and the mate bond was one of the classes they all had to take, so they knew how to deal with a human mate if they found themselves faced with one. Eddie had told her that Izzy was his mate, but from all reports, that had not seemed to matter at all to Piper, still pissed off about it and reiterated that Izzy was human. Eddie had not been happy about the insult. He had been quite annoyed about it, in fact. To which Bradley had told him, "Well, Eddie, she is right. Piper is also to be the future Luna to the pack, so deal with it." Got an utter silence from his gamma on that one. Probably made Eddie realize that he was causing their Luna, who was his actual job, to keep calm during stressful situations, and this would be one for her, more undue stress. Especially with Izzy not just being Piper's employee, but appeared to be her closest friend. He had been chastised by his Luna, or soon-to-be Luna, if Bradley had his way. Bradley actually liked it, that she had laid her boot right into his gamma for his behavior. As was her actual given right to do, if she was already the Luna and part of the pack, she well could have dished out a solid punishment. The man was going about all of this completely backwards, where his human mate was concerned, and if Piper wanted to read Eddie the riot act, Bradley was going to stand by and let her, likely smile at her the whole time, too. She was very strong-willed and didn't seem to care who she talked to and how. Already had a Luna's air of authority, just didn't realize it, he supposed. Likely just put it down to being a rogue and had no one to tell her what to do. Piper opened the door and stood staring at him, seemed quite annoyed, he thought, that he was back before her once more. Then she looked past him, looking for his gamma, he thought. Likely wanted to tear strips off him in person. Eddie is not with me, but do feel free, Piper, to smack him one for his behavior. His mother already has. He half smiled at her. "Where is Izzy?" she asked right away. In our suite upstairs. She is still sleeping. A bit of an issue going on there, Bradley admitted. She already knew. Oh, I'm well aware of that fact. You have no control over your own gamma. She shot right at him, a little anger showing in her words. Bradley frowned at her. I have tried to rein him in, Piper. Then you didn't do a good enough job, did you? She glared right at him. She was outright challenging him, he realized, and letting him know she didn't think his authority over his men was any good. He nor Benson didn't much like it. They both wanted to retort themselves, but knew they had to hold it in, needed to stay calm and controlled in the face of her lack of respect for who he was. Why don't you and Brandon come up to the suite? We'll sit down for lunch, and you can go and check on Izzy yourself. He offered up instead, making sure to keep his voice calm and let none of his annoyance show. Could possibly kill two birds with one stone with it. Get her to see Izzy was all right and get her and Brandon into his suite to have a meal with him at the same time. He could actually see that she was thinking about it. Perhaps this was the right way to do things. Might need Izzy for leverage. Wouldn't use his own son, but Izzy? Did he mark her? She asked, not what he was expecting at all. No, he sighed. But she questioned instantly at his hesitation to finish his sentence. A heavy sigh escaped him. He already knew she was not going to like what he had to tell her. His wolf Timber mated her this morning. Saw real anger flash in those eyes of hers. She knew the laws, knew humans had to be treated differently to she-wolves, then snapped right at him. If I were you, I'd punish that asshole. Calm down, Piper, and I will be. When we get back to the pack, can't very well do it here in the human world now, can I? He muttered. He was also glad there were no actual humans in the hallway right now. This was not a conversation to be had out in the open. She's not going to stay with him if he constantly treats her like his plaything. Plaything? Bradley frowned, not really understanding. That's the politest way I can put it. She grated. How else is a girl supposed to feel when a man just turns up, shoves her up against a wall or onto bed, and takes what he wants, when he wants? She was staring hard at him now. Bradley was staring right back at her. He'd actually not considered that aspect of Eddie's behavior. It was a natural thing for wolves to be all aggressive when it came to mating. Well, they could be. He now realized he'd only actually considered that the man and his wolf had mated her, without her knowing what they were to her. Not how she would feel about the way it was done. From all reports, one from Cooper and the one from Harry, Izzy had actively participated in the act, had even derived a lot of pleasure from it, no real surprise to him. It was now clear they were mates. His wolf would not mate her unless he was certain of her being his mate. Wouldn't even give the woman a second passing glance otherwise. Izzy had seemed to crave Eddie's or Timber's touch, been aroused by it, and mated him right back. All right, I hear you, he told her after thinking about it, letting her know he understood her concerns. They were real, though Izzy unfortunately ran from Eddie, and that set Timber off. Eddie did try to tell her not to run, to warn her. From what I was told. And how would she know what that meant? Saw her shake a head, had a real point on that one. I don't care, to be honest. He needs to back off and do things the right way, or he'll likely end up with no mate at all. You might want to warn him. Bradley nodded. I will do Piper, on that note. Do you think she will be open to it? Accepting Eddie fully. This is not the time nor the place to discuss such things, she told him flatly. He didn't see why not she'd brought it up. It was just an extension of the conversation they were actually having now, but could use that to get what he wanted. Agreed. May I come in then? If this conversation was not to be had out in the open, then inside her room was as good a place as his suite. No. He frowned instantly. Piper, please. We really do need to talk, and about everything. If I can't come in, then will you and Brandon both come upstairs? I would like a proper introduction to the boy. You and I, we also really need to talk. I'm not just going to hand him over to you. She shot angrily at him. I'm not asking you to, he said right back. He didn't want her thinking that. I have no intention of separating the two of you. Not now, not ever. He reaffirmed for her, I want both of you. He stated calmly to see what reaction he would get. She frowned right at him now, narrowed her eyes right on him, likely didn't believe him. I have a life. Well away from you and yours. I have no intention of going back to pack life, inside your pack or any other for that matter. Now he was frowning deeply, the words, "you and yours," inside your pack bothered him greatly. "Please at least come and have one meal. We can discuss things. I'll give you time to think about things. I'm not going to rush this, Piper, if you need time. I'm going to give you that," he told her with full sincerity. Hopefully she would hear it and believe it. "I'm not going back to being invisible, inside a pack," she stated flatly. "I'm not asking you to." He was frowning deeply, as he realized that during this entire conversation, that not once had she said his actual name, or Eddie's for that matter, had used the words "you" and "him." Sounded like she was actively avoiding using his name. Probably hadn't said it out loud in a very long time. Might actually cause her pain to say it, he realized. The "you and yours" was also bothering him now. Wondered if she was talking about her having to be inside his pack, where she thought she would have to see him with other she-wolves, his and his lovers. Also, the going back to being invisible made him realize that's how she had felt growing up inside the pack. Felt invisible because no one could recall her. Bothered him a lot. Wolves were social creatures, and he didn't know she had been alone since the age of 10. Had no idea how she coped at all with that, how she had survived all that time. Wanted to ask her, in fact, but was having no luck talking about the pack with her at this point. Not ready, he guessed. "I want Izzy back. You will have her brought back to this room," she suddenly demanded of him, trying to make him an alpha do as she wanted him to. Likely used to getting her own way in the human world. Or she thought having Brandon would gain her leverage over him to get what she wanted. "Piper, come up and collect her yourself. It's room 1008, on the 10th floor," he stated, was not willing to bow to her demand. She might have Brandon, but he had Izzy. "Bring Brandon, lunch at 12:30, he said, and then just turned and walked away. He was getting annoyed by her challenging him, and he was going to lose his temper at some point. She was not the only one having to deal with their bond, which was unattainable for the both of them. She only thought it was her who was affected by her not having a scent. She was very wrong on that account, and if she would give him 1 hour of her time, he would explain it to her. Bradley found Izzy stepping out of his suite when he strolled down the hallway to his room on the 10th floor. "Isabel, please go back inside the room. I can't have Eddie hunting you every minute of every day right at the moment." She looked right at him, bit her lip at the realization that Eddie was not going to just leave her alone, he thought. Saw her look past him. She was looking for Eddie, and he knew it. "Can we talk, Izzy, you and 12? He stepped right up to her. "Inside would be best." He opened the door all the way, and at her side he ushered her back inside the room. He walked her over to the lounge and waved her to a seat. "Piper is worried about you. I've told her she can come and collect you herself. We can all have lunch together." Please stay here, Izzy. I need Piper to agree to this. More is going on than you think." He walked over and got her a bottle of water from the minibar, and she not only took it but drank a third of it as well. You haven't seen my phone, have you?" "Eddie has it, I believe," Bradley told her as he sat opposite her. Got a frown from her at this bit of knowledge. He's quite possessive, Izzy, and Eddie is not about to walk away from you. More than likes you, in fact. I believe he wants you to come and live out in Montana with all of us inside Drake Industries' gated community. Watched her nearly choke on a mouthful of water she'd been drinking. Then just stared at him. Pretty much the reaction he was expecting due to Eddie's backwards approach. He smiled right at her. "I have approved it, in case you're wondering. Elle can't do that. I am going to be running Piper's new store here in just a month's time," she finally managed to say. A hiccup. He nodded. "I'd like for Piper and Brandon to come back as well. All three of you would be welcomed." Saw her frown now. Piper is not going to do that, she told him outright. Why not? Perhaps Izzy could give him some information that he didn't have, something that could help him to sway Piper into coming home. It's all right, Izzy. You can just say it. I can take an insult. Believe you've already called me a few not so nice names, even though you don't know me at all, and that they were uncalled for. Actually saw guilt pass over her facial expression, and then her eyes fell away from him. Piper is my friend, Mr. Drake, and you hurt her. That's what she says. What if I was to tell you? That is not exactly the whole truth. She was back to looking at him now. It seemed curious, he thought. wondering if Piper had lied to her. Perhaps. It doesn't matter. She'll not come back. Does not, and I don't blame her. Want to be around that child you're about to marry. What? A child? And I'm not getting married. He frowned and then realized she was talking about his sister, Hadley. He shook his head. Izzy, Hadley is my little sister, not someone I am going to marry. I have also already told Piper, just this morning. Was in fact the very reason I was trying to get a hold of her, to tell her just that. Oh, indeed, Bradley nodded. Then finding out about Brandon, that was a complete shock. Actually, if it wasn't for you, I'd likely still be in the dark about my son. What? I didn't tell you anything, she shook her head. No, you didn't. He acknowledged, but my man, Cooper, overheard you ask Piper at the store in Portland if I was the boy's father. Has the same eyes. I believe you stated. Saw her sigh as she looked right at him, at his eyes in fact. He does have some very unique eyes. It's not like I was going to miss you have the same. So, Izzy, I'd like you to help me. Bradley asked outright. Oh no. You and Piper. I'm not choosing your side. She is my best friend, Mr. Drake. I have known her for a very long time, and you all have 2 minutes. I'll also know she is real pain where you're concerned. Bradley liked how loyal she was, but needed her help. Just some information is all I need. I'm not going away, Izzy, any more than Eddie is for you. What exactly do you want from Piper? She asked directly. Everything, he stated simply. Everything? Elaborate. Piper is not the dating type. He smiled, and I'm actually thankful for that. And he did not relish suffering the pains of betrayal. Oh, so it's okay for you to date and fuck around, but not her. Izzy suddenly snapped all sarcastically, her temper triggered. You're a typical man. Just a pig. Bradley was staring at her now, wide-eyed and completely shocked by her sudden angry outburst, and the foul language she had used. Clearly had man issues herself, like he thought. Shook it off, had to. Isabel, please don't speak to me like that. You know nothing about me, and that is not at all what I meant. Bullshit, she yelled right at him, and I know plenty about you. Read your bio, looked you up online. Knew men just like you. In fact, I grew up around men just like you. Rich, arrogant, controlling, and with the belief you're God's gift to women, when really all you do is go and fuck around, regardless of who you hurt. Even Benson was annoyed with her now. Bradley had to keep him in check. She was human, reminded his wolf of just that. I have not fucked around in a very long time. He snapped at her, and if you did actually know me at all, you'd know that. He couldn't keep the irritation out of his voice anymore. Trying to rein Benson in and stay in control was no easy feat. I do not know what Piper told you. Likely not much at all. And he didn't think Piper had ever mentioned him till recently, let alone the situation she was in. She left me. I've not been with anyone since. He told her flatly, not a single woman since she left. He reiterated to her to make it perfectly clear. The look on her face told him she did not believe him at all. Obviously knew it was 8 years. You're celibate? She questioned him, sounded skeptical. I am. I only want Piper. However, the woman left in the middle of the night, changed her name, and just vanished from my life. Eddie actually hunted her most of that night, but had no luck himself in finding her. Why didn't you do it yourself? She shot right at him. Still didn't believe him, he realized. Bradley sighed. I was in the hospital. Nearly died that night. Not long after she left. I thought someone had poisoned me. When I woke up, she was gone. Did not tell her at the time he thought it was Piper who'd done that. Best leave that alone, especially as that was not the case at all. He could see her frown deepen as she tried to absorb the news. He wanted to tell her the truth, but didn't know if she'd handle it. Was curious as to what she would do if he let Benson push forward. Heard Benson snort inside his mind run. She was just staring at him. Several minutes he waited. Piper told me you never cared about her. I heard the actual pain in her voice. She did not lie about it. He couldn't even get into that with her. Not here. That was a conversation for inside the pack, so he couldn't explain anything without telling her what he or Piper was, what a mate bond is at this time. Sighed, that is not exactly true. I was blind. I admit that. And he had been. Not being able to send her at all. Hindered all his memories of her. All of them. Not just her as his mate. but her as a pack member too. Right now, when he looked at Piper, he was not using any of his wolf senses, had to switch them off along with all his instincts to use them, to recognize her for that matter. Not an easy thing to do. It was ingrained into him to smell everything around him, to recollect and create memories of people. Every time he was in front of her right now, he was just looking at her with his eyes only. It was all he could do. Trying to ingrain her into his memory without a scent. He could at least see her and hold her image in his mind with this technique. Seemed to be the only way to hold on to her. You only want what you can't have is more like it. Is she the first woman to ever leave you, I wonder? Izzy was not about to let go of her assumption of him, it seemed. Bradley frowned at her. The world she came from, rich, arrogant me, who needed to be in control. She was very biased against him. That was a certainty. If he answered yes to that question, she would likely laugh at him, tell him he didn't handle rejection. So he didn't say anything at all on that subject. Izzy, I will not hurt her. I am loyal in this regard. I will treat Piper with respect. Give her everything she wants, deny her nothing, herd her snort, accept her freedom from you, right? It's complicated, Izzy. Piper and I come from a very different world to you. Our lives move differently to yours. Piper actually belongs with me, and I want her. Well, Mr. Drake, good luck getting her to believe that. She rolled her eyes right at him. Then help me. Why should I? Give me one good reason. I love her, he stated. Saw the woman burst out laughing, a little on the hysterical side. Then her eyes landed right on his and all amusement was gone. Love? I doubt that very much, Mr. Drake. Piper is a very well-known design. She has been in a lot of magazines, done TV interviews. How is it if you, as you say, she dripped with sarcasm, love her? Rolled her eyes yet again. You couldn't find her. She didn't exactly hide herself in a dark corner of dingy little room. She graced the cover of 4 magazines just last year, magazines that were national, so would have also been there in Montana, where you live, on the newsstands, and you say you couldn't find her. More like you didn't look for her at all. Only now that you know about Brandon, do you want her around? The low growl that ripped out of Benson at her very hurtful words and the blatant disrespect she was showing shot the woman to her feet, and her eyes were very wide as she now stared down at him, likely looking right at Benson's green glowing eyes. His wolf had had enough of her accusatory words. He was the alpha in this room and would not be tolerating any more from her. Bradley forced Benson to back down and cleared his throat. Like I said, it's very complicated. We're not the same as you. Stood up himself when she edged towards the door slowly, mind-linked to Eddie to come right to the room. That not only was Izzy awake, she'd ticked Benson off and he'd growled right at her, was now scared and itching to leave. Heard Eddie swear, but that was it. He walked over to bar her exit from the room. I'd like you to stay here, till Piper comes and gets you, he reminded her casually. She was still just staring at him. It didn't take Eddie long to arrive. He strode right into the room and looked right at Izzy. Fear was still written on her face for all to see as she stared at Bradley. Eddie sighed heavily and walked over to her. Bradley watched her step into the man's arms without hesitation. When he held them out to her, a good thing to see. She trusted him on pure instinct. Watched Eddie hug her and then walked her back to his room and closed the door. She went. Didn't seem to resist in any way at all. The woman had infuriated him, pushed him past his and his wolf's limit. They were not likely going to get any help from her at this point, sighed. There was nothing he could do about it. Wondered what she thought about Eddie turning upright when she needed him to. I likely thought it was a mere coincidence. Chapter 34. Piper POV. She just knew that Bradley was not going to let Izzy out of that suite they were all staying in. The only way Izzy was going to be able to leave was if she went up there and retrieved her, herself, and that damned man knew she would, too it seemed. Brandon had been quiet since the second visit and had only asked one question of her. Is Aunt Izzy in trouble because of us? Piper had sighed softly and told him no and yes. It is not solely because of us, and Brandon, none of this is your fault. Alphas do what they think they need to get what they want. Izzy.is currently a bargaining chip. She will be fine, and she is safe. No harm will come to her, I promise, and she knew that it wouldn't. She was Eddie's mate. a precious commodity, so to speak. Updated by findnovel.net and visit us for more free novels. He had sat now quietly for the past hour, and Piper knew he was concerned. He knew that Izzy was human and not like them. She looked at the clock. It was coming up on 12:30. Bradley's lunch invitation wasn't really an invitation at all, she didn't think. More of a demand which he had just put as politely as he knew how, she supposed. It had also not escaped her attention that Brandon himself was watching the clock. The longer she left it, the more worried he was getting. "We'll go and get Aunt Izzy," she told him at 12:20. He was becoming restless and fidgety. She didn't want him worrying any more than he needed to. Held her hand out to him. "Come on." He took it. Piper didn't want to sit down with this man, even if that redhead from her store had been his little sister. That did not make being in a room with him any easier at all. She doubted that there was anything that ever would. Stepped out of her hotel room and frowned as she saw Cooper lean away from the wall down the end of the hall to her right. Turned and looked the other way and found Harry leaning on the wall. His eyes were also on her right this moment. Likely stationed in the hallway to stop her from leaving without them knowing. She ignored the two of them and walked to the elevator. Brandon, she noted, looked from one to the other and then inched that bit closer to her. Aspen must have told him what they were, or from the size of the two of them, he realized they were wolves. She didn't think he had seen these two before. Bradley would have told the pair of them about the lunch, or they would have been within earshot of their last conversation. Likely had been standing out there in the corridor all morning doing exactly what their alpha told them to do. Watch for her trying to leave with his son. She was not surprised to see them out there in the hallway, just annoyed about it. But also knew that now he knew about Brandon, there was nothing else but this to be expected. Found Cooper, the pack beta step right into the elevator with them before the doors closed. Found Brandon clinging right to her leg. "It's all right," she murmured as she reached down and picked him up and felt him hug into her. "I got real sharp claws," she whispered, trying to make him smile. Felt Cooper's eyes move right to her as she pressed the 10th floor button. Heard him chuckle a little. "Me too," he whispered right back. Piper couldn't help but snort a little as she tried not to look at Cooper. It had been a veiled threat, and she'd never seen Brandon's claws at all. But she imagined if Aspen was awake, he'd likely told Brandon to say it, and the boy had. It amused her completely, though she knew it likely did not amuse Cooper at all. He could not command her, or Brandon, for that matter, could roll his aura at them and try to instill fear into them, but he couldn't make her back down. Maybe she should tell Brandon that. It might make him have a little bit less fear around all these wolves, and she did want that. Though she had not seen Aspen since this morning. Not since Bradley's wolf had laid claim to the boy and his wolf. Stepped out of the elevator onto the 10th floor. "This way, Piper," Cooper stated casually. His hand dropped to the small of her back, and before she had time to register it, Harper was all on the surface, snarling loud and aggressively snapped her eyes right to his. "Don't touch me," her gravelly voice roared right up at him. Saw his eyes go very wide, and his hand was gone a second later. Harper stood staring him down. She also registered Aspen was growling from his place in her arms. They did not want to be touched by another wolf, and though a part of both of them understood, it had likely been pure instinct on his part, just being the pack beta guiding her where to go. He wouldn't have even thought about it. It did not go down well with Harper. Both his hands were raised in a defensive, non-threatening gesture. "I'm sorry," he commented. "What's going on?" It was Bradley's voice. He'd likely heard the snarling and growling with his wolf's hearing and thought there was a problem. Cooper backed away. "I just put my hand on her back to guide her, Brad, nothing more." Harper was still watching Cooper as he moved away, still on the surface, and a very low growl was still being emitted from her as she watched him. "Doesn't like being touched, I don't think," she heard him tell Bradley. "Piper, please calm down. He meant no harm or disrespect," Bradley told her as Cooper walked off down the hall. "He touches me again, I'll rip his hand off," Harper snarled, before receding and giving Piper back control. She slid her hand through Brandon's hair and looked down at him. Aspen was gone too, it seemed. It was just Brandon looking up at her. His wolf had likely reacted to hers, reaction to being touched. "It's all right," She kissed the top of his head and let him lean right back into her, turned her eyes to Bradley. Harper had not once looked at the man, had been solely focused on the one that had dared to lay a hand on her. Bradley had a look of concern on his face. He was likely very unhappy about her wolf's threat to his beta. She had made herself so very clear in her intent. He was also likely to be very unhappy with his own son's reaction to the pack beta as well. "This way," he commented, and waved a hand down the hall she walked. "Where is Izzy?" she asked the moment she stepped into the room. Heard him sigh before answering her in Eddie's room. Her eyes moved right to his. She was annoyed to hear those words. "She is fine, Piper, though unfortunately, Benson growled at her earlier for disrespecting us, and it scared her. Eddie is with her now." "Do they just go around scaring everyone, Mum?" Brandon asked up at her. "No, son, I do not. It was an accident, just like now, when Harper and you growled at Cooper, my beta. That was not an accident." Piper informed him, then turned away from him. "Izzy," she called out. She didn't really care what he thought about Harper growling at his beta. They knew nothing about her or her wolf. He and his pack had done nothing but cause them pain and loneliness. Harper was not interested in being a wolf or being touched by one at random, regardless of the manner of said touch. Saw as Izzy stepped out of a room, felt Brandon squirm to get down and let him go. "Are you all right?" Piper asked her as Brandon ran right over to her and hugged her. Izzy nodded. "I'm all right." She knelt down and hugged the boy back, reassured him she was okay, and smiled at him. "I was scared you were hurt by them," Brandon told her. "I'm all right, Brandon." She squeezed him gently. "But they took you prisoner." She heard Bradley huff in annoyance at the boy's words, but what did he expect a 7-year-old to think when his aunt was taken and refused to be allowed to come back or be given back when asked? Saw Eddie frown down at the boy. Frown even deeper when Izzy didn't correct him. It was likely she had tried to leave at some point and had been refused to be allowed, therefore was actually a prisoner. Not that any of these wolves would see it that way, but things worked very differently in the human world. Tilted her head slightly as they looked at Izzy. Harper smelled her, smelled human blood, felt Harper's instincts rise, and a low growl issued from her inside. Piper's mind. "Izzy's injured," she told Pip. She slid her eyes over Izzy. Couldn't see any blood, but yes, definitely could smell it. "Izzy, you're bleeding," she stated coldly. Her eyes moved right to Edward's accusingly. "No." "Yes, you are, or were." "What happened?" There was an angry edge to her voice. Harper was almost on the surface. "She got scratched is all. It was Edward." "Only lightly so. She is fine, Piper, I assure you." Watched as the man put a hand on Izzy. The woman didn't flinch away from him, likely didn't fear him. His touch might even bring the comfort of a mate's touch. Harper, however, didn't care. His wolf had mated her, and she'd gotten injured by him, it seemed. Does she need medical attention? Did you even check it? She didn't think so. Wolves had natural healing abilities, and a scratch to them was nothing, but not to a human. Saw him actually blink in the realization that he'd forgotten to even check it. Didn't care about anything but himself and his need to mate her. Didn't even care about causing her injury. Saw guilt on his face a second later. Yes, not a wolf. She wanted to yell at him, but couldn't because Izzy had no idea what they all were. "Izzy, perhaps you should let me check you over," Eddie said softly. "What, why?" She didn't seem to understand at all. "Piper is right. A scratch could get infected." Saw his eyes move to Bradley. "The med kit?" "Cooper," Bradley stated. "How was it?" There was a whole room full of wolves, and it took her to pick up the scent of Izzy's blood. "Brandon, come here, please." She held her hand out. Knew Edward would tend to the wounds his own wolf had caused. Found Brandon's hand in her a moment later. "Mum," he sounded worried. "Edward will tend to her or Harper will have a piece of him," she stated flatly. Izzy looked very confused by her statement. Saw Edward's eyes move right to hers. It was an outright threat to the Pax Gamma. Harper did not care about who he was. He was nothing to her. Never had been. Izzy was also going to find out in short order what they all were anyway. Probably better that it was she who told the woman. Izzy had known Piper and Brandon for all of Brandon's life bar the first 6 months. They'd never hurt her, not once. There was a lot of trust between them. A sister's bond, she liked to think of it. Izzy would be able to see that not all wolves were mean and nasty creatures. Not all were arrogant and selfish. Though from what Izzy had seen of late, by this alpha and his entire unit, was that they only cared about what Bradley wanted, and the typical arrogance of a wealthy man trying to get his own way. She knew Izzy had looked him up, told Piper as much. Wondered why the woman had done so? What had piqued her curiosity about the man? Or was it that she was simply trying to get a heads up on what she would be dealing with? Seeing as they had been stalking her and Piper since she'd refused to make that dress and tossed them out. Saw Edward take Izzy back into his room, with the med kit Cooper had handed to him. She turned her eyes on Bradley, raised an eyebrow at him questioningly. My apologies, I have been distracted of late. Other concerns blinding me, you could say. He was looking right at her, never took his eyes off of hers. Heard the hotel door be knocked on, that will be lunch, he commented. It was, and the woman pushing the cart blinked and stared up at him when he smiled down at her. Piper rolled her eyes and walked away. I'll get that, Brad, Cooper stated and headed over to the door. Thank you, Co-op. Brad acknowledged him. I didn't know what Brandon liked to eat, so I got a couple of choices for him. Bradley told her, please come and sit. We'll wait for Eddie and Izzy. Harrison, she noted, was coming in the door as the service lady was leaving. He held the door for her to pass him. Piper watched as the woman turned and looked at all three of them, shook her head almost as if to clear it, and looked again, like she couldn't believe that they were all real. Eddie appeared with Izzy. A couple of light scratches, nothing serious. He looked right at her as he spoke. Her eyes turned to Izzy for confirmation of his statement. She nodded at her. She only sat down at the table once Izzy did. Brandon was between her and Izzy. He likely felt safer, she thought. A plate of chicken and chips was put in front of Brandon. Bradley himself did it. Is this all right, Brandon? If not, I do have a hamburger and fries for you. It's fine, Brandon told him, but didn't look at the man. He too was unhappy that his aunt had not only been a prisoner, but had been injured as well, it seemed. Likely Aspen could also smell the blood on his aunt. Bradley also placed a meal in front of Piper. It was a medium rare steak with vegetables, a typical wolfen food, she thought. Noted that though was careful not to touch her, likely didn't want Harper to threaten him. She'd already threatened 2 of his unit, and she'd mend it. They might be what these creatures were on some level, but had not been inside the wolfen world for many years, lived as human, because they actually didn't like wolves or pack life. Being touched by one was not something they wanted. Saw Brandon look at her meal and wrinkle his nose at the sight of those vegetables on her plate, shake his head. You have to eat vegetables, he whispered. Was all she said, be thankful you don't. Yuck, I won't, he shook his head. She couldn't help but smile down at him. Even here in this very awkward situation, he would refuse to eat vegetables if they were on his plate. Heard Izzy chuckle, then watched her wave a piece of broccoli from her plate right in his face, and Brandon swatted away. You get it away from me. He was shoving at her hand as she tried to make him eat it, playing with him. Even Izzy knew the boy was hard-pressed not to eat vegetables, though he would actually eat broccoli if necessary, one of the vegetables she could bribe him into eating. Realized the whole room was quiet, and found all 4 of them watching the antics between Brandon and Izzy. It was a completely natural thing for her to see, for them to do, so of no surprise to her, just amusing to see and hear. This was, however, the first time they were seeing it, seeing Brandon actually act normally and not afraid of them. She supposed. Picked up her knife and fork. There was not going to be much conversation here. Not with Izzy in the room. They could not talk openly and freely about being wolves with her around. So she ate quietly and just watched as Izzy tormented Brandon by trying to get him to eat other vegetables off her plate. It was cute. Even Harper was enjoying watching him. Piper. Her eyes moved across the table to Bradley, by way of an answer. Do you think you could actually introduce me properly to Brandon? He knows who you are, she told him simply. Piper, I would like an introduction. She stared at him for a few seconds, then shrugged. Brandon, your father. She waved a hand at Bradley to indicate him to the boy. Saw Bradley frown right at her. Didn't like the way she did it, she guessed. What did the man want? Bells and whistles? Brandon already knew who he was. Narrowed his eyes right on her. That is not a proper introduction, Piper. She raised an eyebrow at him. Then I'm not exactly sure what you want. Protocol, she halted. Traditionally, can't be followed right this minute. Introduce yourself, how you want, I suggest. He was looking right at her, seemed he wanted something from her, but she was not exactly sure of what that was. There was a human sitting at the table. She couldn't well introduce him as the alpha to his pack now, could she? His eyes moved to Brandon, who was watching the interaction between the two of them. Likely so was Aspen, she thought. Brandon, son. My name is Bradley Drake. I am your father. I know. He shrugged right back at the man. Mum told me already, when I asked who you were. Piper saw more of herself in him than she realized was there before. That shrug and his dismissive tone, that was all her. It's really good to meet you. She watched as Bradley smiled right at Brandon and looked away, had enough issues being in this room, did not need that image inside her mind to asterisk her further. Focused on her meal. Noted Brandon didn't actually say anything back to him. He was biased against wolves, as was Aspen. All they had seen of wolves so far were that wolves were and threatening. That's also what she'd told him before she knew this was coming, before she knew Bradley was going to be a part of their lives. This likely also didn't help his reaction to his own kind. Probably going to have to curb that. It was clear to her that Bradley was not about to go away anytime soon. Wanted to get to know the boy. Likely she was going to have to deal with him on a regular basis. Felt pain touch her at that thought. Yea, see him with others. Not what she wanted at all. Had had enough of that to last her a whole lifetime. Took a deep breath in as her fork hovered over her plate, while she pushed that pain away. This was the very reason she left, to stay away from him, to forget how it felt to see him with another. Piper, it's okay. She heard the southern drawl of his gamma, even felt the wave of calming aura he was suddenly pushing at her. Likely being the gamma had picked up on something of her emotions. You touch me, Edward, you'll lose that hand. She muttered, knew he would need to touch her to get the full effect of his gamma's charm to work on her. Didn't even look at him, didn't care to. She knew what a gamma was, what he could do, all about his particular charm, had seen him use it around the pack, on distressed she-wolves after rogue attacks. Not that he had ever come to help her, and she would have been his actual job, his main concern, or should have been. But no, she'd gotten no help from him, not once. So didn't want it now. She'd dealt with years of pain, could handle much worse than a little heart ache, hell a lot worse. She'd felt like she was going to die at times, inside that pack. Had actually prayed to the moon goddess, who'd forsaken her to end her miserable life, on more than one occasion. But no, that woman seemed to enjoy her suffering and had allowed it to continue, year after year. Until she had taken matters into her hands, and left, that was, but of course, couldn't even let her do that her way. No, the moon goddess just had to have one more jab at her before she left. Put Bradley right back in the pack when he was supposed to be away. Given her a taste of her own unattainable mate, only to have him still not recognize her, just enjoy the use of her body for his pleasure. A good fuck was all she was to him, and nothing more. Wondered not for the first time what she had done so wrong to piss off the moon goddess, to be cursed by her, to be toyed with by her. Wondered if the woman they all prayed to and worshipped actually even cared at all about them. Or were they all just toys for her to play with, little puppets attached by strings to her fingers that she liked to just cut loose or toss around uncaringly? Chapter 35. Piper POV. Heard a chair's leg scrape back away from the table quite violently and turned to see it was Izzy. Knew instantly what the problem was, pushed her own issues away. Edward's eyes had moved to another during the meal. Izzy hated that, saw her angry and hurt though it was not directed at Piper. She knew Piper would never hurt her like that expression. This could really break her bond with Edward. The man's eyes moved right to Izzy as she stepped away from the table, slashed angrily right at Edward's hand as if it landed on her arm, to remove it from her skin. He would not be able to charm her, couldn't use that gift on his own mate, they were immune to it. Saw her stalk away, saw real confusion in the man's eyes. He didn't even know what he had done, wouldn't in all likelihood even be able to guess at it. He knew nothing about his human mate. Stay here, she told Brandon softly, and got up, put her hand out to Edward as he also stood up and shook her head at him. Then she hurried after Izzy, who'd actually not left the hotel suite. just banged right into Edward's room. Walked right in there after her. Izzy? They're all the same, you know, she grated out. There were tears already filling her eyes. She was bonded to him already. Her pain was very real right this minute. What she had seen was just Edward's natural instincts kicking in, but she couldn't understand that. How could she explain this to her without telling her the whole truth of what the man really was, what his actual job inside a pack was? Piper sighed softly, walked right over to her and hugged her. It's not like that, Izzy. I promise. Yes, it is. I heard it. How much concern just now for you? I hate men, she whispered. I thought he was going to be different. He feels different in you. A sob broke out of the woman. I didn't lie to you, Izzy. He wants no other, not ever. She tried to reassure her friend. I know this. It's just complicated. She hugged her tightly. Piper might not like wolves herself, but Izzy had the right to be happy. I don't want complicated, Piper. I just want one man, whose eyes never wander. Why is it so hard to get? Piper knew that every single one of them out there would be using their wolf's hearing to listen to this conversation. Nothing private would be allowed, though it was probably a good idea that Eddie knew what was going on in here. He'd unwittingly hurt Izzy, had not meant to, did not even know what he'd done, had looked very confused, and not only that, he could not come in here and just charm her into calming down either, and he knew it. I don't know, Izzy, she sighed again, and she didn't. Her own mate had never even known she existed, so she understood all too well the pain of the one you want, wanting another and right before your very eyes, had seen it herself, the way Brad had looked at Bianca, just like Izzy had when Philip cheated on her. Caught him in the act. He's not ever going to cheat on you, Izzy. It's not in him. Didn't lie about that. I understand. It will all get explained to you. It will. Just complicated. Edward's job. How did one do this? Piper pulled herself away and looked down at her. Sit. I try to explain what I can. I'll be a bit confusing, but will you listen? She saw Izzy nod her head. She likely wanted to hear anything at all to help her believe it wasn't that Edward wanted someone else, needed to hear it. Her bond with Edward was already strong, it seemed, likely because she had been mated by both Edward and his wolf. Likely she had mated him right back at some point. Probably with his wolf this morning, but it could have been with both of them, she didn't know. They sat on the bed. Piper brushed the tears from the woman's face and sighed. Drake Industries is a very private company. Not just anyone is allowed inside the headquarters. It's a very close-knit, tightly guarded gated community, and Edward's job is not some CEO. Which is how, if you looked him up, saw Izzy nod her head to acknowledge she had already done that, he would look. He has a very specific role to play. Kind of like a counselor or shrink, I guess. He can read emotions very well. Like, an empath, you could say. They're not real, Piper. Izzy frowned at her. They are actually. She nodded. It's Edward's job to read people and try to calm them when upset. She was not going to tell her it was only the women he worked with. Likely send Izzy running right out of the hotel room. He felt something for me, that was all. Automatically went into work mode. So he's not interested? Piper laughed softly. No, she shook her head. No one in that room out there is at all interested in me, only Brandon. Saw Izzy frown right at her. That might not be true, Piper. It is, it's okay. She shrugged. I never belonged there. That's why I left. I told you this before. But Bradley said to me. Piper cut her off. Stop, he just wants his son, Izzy. Likely will say anything to get him inside that gated community he owns. He owns a whole community? Yes. Piper nodded. Edward, she changed the subject, is going to take you there. What? But I've got a store to run here. Piper looked right at her and sighed again, a little on the heavy side now. Likely not anymore, I'm sorry. He won't let you live halfway around the world from him and Izzy? Honestly. Do you like him? Saw the girl bite her lip nervously. It's okay, Izzy, I can see that you do. But Piper, don't worry about it, I'll promote Devin. You hired him knowing he's capable. Hired him so he could run the store when you were away with me at bridal shows and fashion shows, remember? You're not letting me down, Izzy, she reassured her. I don't even know him. I know, but you really like him, don't you? Was actively encouraging her best friend, a woman she considered to be her only family, to go and be with a wolf. Piper wondered if she was certifiably crazy, because this was going to cost her, her only true friend. I think I do. You think? Piper half snorted. Can you tell me, has any man ever made you feel like he does? That you can't say no to him. Don't even want to. She gave her a little playful shove. Saw Izzy smile, no and no. See, you'll be just fine. I'm pretty sure Edward has no idea what he did wrong. He looked so very confused. I'm betting he's already itching to apologize even though he has no idea what he did. I'm betting he's prowling around out there, terrified he's going to lose you. I doubt it. Men never do that. Those from Drake Industries are a whole different breed. They can be very open about what they want. Will usually just state how they feel. Hasn't Edward already done that? She asked, knowing full well the man had laid his claim on her. What? Come on, Izzy. The man told you were his, didn't he? She prompted. Heard Izzy giggle softly, and then nodded, stated mine. See, you'll be fine. Just try to remember, he has that weird job. So sometimes he'll want to comfort others. It's just his job, not how he feels about anyone else. I promise you that. Just his job. Izzy nodded, though didn't sound totally convinced. Yes, I've seen it in action. Quite a bit when I was there. She sighed softly. Once his job is over, he wanders off, lets it go, not a care in the world. Just a job. You'll have to remember that. Keep it in mind. For a month or so, I'm guessing. A month? What happens then? You'll get married. I'm guessing that man out there will not want to wait on getting you down the aisle. What? That's too soon. Not inside Drake Industries. People there are known to get married the day they meet, kind of weird, and they have no divorce rate either, always loyal to each other. That is just weird. It's just how it is, you'll understand. Get to understand. You'll like it there, fit it. Then why'd you leave? I didn't fit in, Izzy. Never could. It's hard to explain, she shrugged. Never will, she sighed. But don't worry about me, just be worried about you. About how you feel and let yourself love him. I know you want to, you're just scared. But you don't have to be. He's never going to hurt you. He already loves you. Watched Izzy screw her face up in a yeah right. Oh, and he just flew halfway around the world for no reason, then did he? Men don't do that. Piper, Bradley Drake came too. And so did all his other men. He came for his boy Izzy, she stated flatly. Now you feeling better? Izzy nodded her head. You can come in, Edward, she stated calmly. The door opened instantly, saw Izzy shock and smiled, leaned over and hugged her one more time. It's weird, I know, you'll get used to it. He'll always know where you are. Always, she whispered. Not a moment's rest from the crazy beast you have found yourself. Heard Edward chuckle softly at her word use. Thank you, Piper. Piper looked right at him, said nothing, just walked out of the room and closed the door so they could talk privately. No one was likely to tune into their conversation. Yes, she had helped him, and in more ways than one she supposed, but she didn't do it for him, did it for Izzy. That woman deserved to have a man who would love and cherish her. Unfortunately, that man was also a wolf. Found herself under everyone's gaze. She sighed and walked back over to the table and sat down. Looked at Brandon. She's all right, sweetie, she told him. Thank you, Piper. It was Harrison, Edward's brother. She looked at him. I did it for her, not for him. I know that, but still thank you. Seeing as Izzy will likely be staying here from now on, Brandon and I will go now. Piper, please. Bradley stood and looked down at her. Stay and talk to me. I want you to come home, where you belong. I don't belong there, never did, she stated emotionlessly. Come on, Brandon. She reached for his hand as she stood up. Piper, you do belong there. I want you there. He moved to reach out and touch her. She took a step back away from him. No, it's not my home. Never was I now realize. Go back, leave us be, please. He was suddenly right in front of her, blocking her way from leaving the suite. Piper, I know your life inside the pack was not nice. I do. I'm really sorry, but please have dinner with me, privately, so we can really talk. Cooper and Harry or even Izzy can watch Brandon. It's just one dinner. Is that really too much to ask? Yes, she stated flatly. It was. He had no idea about her life in the pack. I do not want. Enough, he suddenly snapped, cutting her off. I don't want to hear it. "Don't do it, Piper. It hurts." And then he just turned and stalked away and banged right out the hotel suite. "Piper, did you not just hear him begging you, and Alpha begging you to just hear him out, hear his pain at all, as you ignore him at every turn?" "He doesn't know what pain is," Piper muttered. Heard Cooper sigh as he got up from the table himself. "Actually, yes, he does," she stated as he headed for the door. "You nearly killed him once, Piper, and he didn't even know what the hell had happened to him." Then he was gone out of the room. Piper frowned. Nearly killed him once? She highly doubted that. Was the other way around, in fact. The last time she had seen him, he had been alive, asleep in his very own bed. "Piper, it was Harrison." Her eyes moved to him. "Bradley felt your rejection of him." She blinked in shock. They could not know that she had uttered a rejection to the man. None of them, including Bradley himself, even knew what she had been to him at the time. It gutted him. He didn't even know what was wrong with him. When the pain hit him, he woke up in agony. None of us knew what the hell was wrong with him. He shook his head, rushed him off to the Pack hospital, except Eddie, who felt it. Understood what it was. Harry sighed and stood up. "Then when you left and rejected the Pack completely, the man tried to rip his own heart out. Had to be sedated by Dr. Samuel. It nearly did kill him." She was just standing there staring at him now. Didn't know what to say at all. Didn't even know if she believed it, to be honest. "Let him talk to you, Piper. Give him that much. It's one dinner. Izzy can watch young Brandon in your room. Just Izzy. None of us will be there, if that makes you more comfortable." Piper didn't know what to think at all. The man sounded completely sincere to her, but there was no way that any of them could know about the mate bond she had with their Alpha. Only she'd ever known. Not even Bradley himself had known. Not even after being with her, touching her. Not even then had he known. She was invisible to that Pack, to all Packs. Always had been, so how could they know? Especially who she actually was. It did not make sense at all. And how could her words hurt him now? It had been 8 years, he'd continued on in his life. She'd not felt one single pain of betrayal since she left. Her rejection was in effect. She was more than confused right this minute. Nothing made sense to her at all. "I'll walk you and Brandon to your room. I'll pick you up at 6 for dinner." "Please, it's one dinner, just an hour of your time. It's not that much to ask, not really in the grand scheme of things. Our lives are very long." He escorted her and Brandon back to their room on the 6th floor, reminded her at the door he'd come and collect her at 6, then he just turned and walked away. She stood in her room, still very confused. "Mum?" "I don't know Brandon." She answered him honestly, because she didn't. She knew that he had heard everything that both Cooper and Harrison had said in that room, as well as Bradley, before he stormed out. Had no idea what he made of it all. She couldn't even comprehend it herself. Her son likely had no idea at all. She couldn't even explain it to him, because she was as confused as he was. Chapter 36. Bradley POV. Bradley was more than concerned with Harper's reaction to his beta. It was uncalled for, he thought, and she was right there on the surface out in the open for any human to see. If they walked past or came out of their hotel room to see what all the noise was, Bradley had been prowling around inside his hotel room. He was worried that though she was on her way up here, she was going to just demand that he hand Izzy over and leave the minute she had her. It was a completely possibility this would happen. She did not seem to want to give him a moment of her time. His head had whipped around at the sound of a wolf snarling, "Don't touch me." He had known she was on her way up here with Cooper. The man had already mind-linked him to let him know, also mentioned that Brandon appeared afraid of his presence. Bradley had not been expecting any aggression on either of their parts, Piper or Brandon's, for that matter, not with the boy displaying fear. He had shot out of his room into the hall to see what the hell was going on out there. It had been all of 2.5 minutes, and everything seemed to have gone off the rails. Cooper was actively backing away from them, his hands raised so that she could see his was no threat to her, or the child she was carrying in her arms. Noted it was not just Harper on the surface, but his boy's wolf Aspen was right there with her. Something had made the pair of them perceive Cooper as a threat to them, and in the space of 2.5 minutes. Demanded his beta tell him what the hell was going on, needed to know to help calm the situation if he could. Cooper told him he'd just touched her to guide her to the room. It didn't make sense. That was not a gesture of threat at all. Yet here she was, and not just her all aggression, Brandon too. A low growl was still being emitted from Harper as well. She was very unhappy, it seemed. This was not a good thing. He'd seen the way she had taken a step back from Benson earlier this morning, when he'd reached out to touch her. Now this, a full threat to rip his hand clean off if he touched her again. It was pretty damned clear she did not want to be touched at all. Must have been the actual touch itself that set her wolf off. It concerned it greatly, set his brain on fire at the possible reasons why she would react to such an ordinary thing for a beta to do. It was just an instinct on Cooper's part, he imagined. Certainly would not have been a threat in any way. Made Bradley wonder if at some point that pendant had come off of her and she'd been hurt. He hoped not. Though if it was after her leaving, he would have felt it himself. So unlikely. He also knew he had been her first as well. Something else was going on, he just didn't know what. Needed to find out, he guessed. Waved her past him, even took a half step back so she could walk past him without the issue of them coming into contact. Noticed that Aspen receded almost at the exact same time as Harper did. Wondered if his young alpha wolf was deeply connected to his mother, if he could actually feel her push forward and recede without looking at her. It was possible. He could always tell when his mother's wolf had looked at him, even before he'd gotten his wolf. She'd died when he was just 12, but could still recall always knowing when her wolf was right there on the surface, even if he wasn't looking at her. Aspen may have that himself. Thinking about his mother, she was an early shifter, he realized, gotten her wolf hollow at 10 herself. Perhaps this was why Aspen was early. He could tell right away that Piper was more than annoyed to hear that Izzy was in Eddie's room and likely thought the man was keeping her in there for his own gain, than to hear Brandon ask if all wolves scared everyone all the time. Actually hurt a little, and not just him but Benson too. It was clear from that one statement that the only interactions his son had ever had with any of his own kind were all bad. He'd never had a single nice interaction with the exception of his own mother. He did not like that at all. Not all wolves were nasty, mean, scary creatures. In fact, unless you ticked one off, they were usually just happy going about their own business. And out in the human world, they were usually well-mannered and polite. Their human counterparts knew better than to antagonize anyone or get into a fight. And if he had ever seen the inside of a pack, he would know that. Saddened him a little too. So told him no, they did not, and corrected him, told him it was an accident that he had growled at Izzy, just like it was out in the hall when Harper growled at Cooper. Only to be told point-blankly that was no accident. He did not like that. Harper had meant every word, and her threat to his beta was real. Would have to work on that. It was nice to see Izzy and Brandon interact, clearly very close. Watched her hug the boy, so it wasn't that touching him was a threat. Touching his mother was seen as a threat. Very protective indeed, just like Timothy had stated. Hoped that was not going to be a problem in the future. Frowned when Piper stated Izzy was injured, and then outright threatened his gamma with Harper in front of Izzy. He did apologize. It had actually escaped him that Izzy was injured. He'd seen Eddie carry that woman right into this hotel room. She looked fine to him, just tired, and if she had been injured by Eddie or his wolf, they would have known about it and done something, so he'd not even smelled the woman looking for signs of injury. Turned out to be a light scratch on either side of her hips, Timber's claws used to remove her underwear. Eddie had mind-linked him. It was nothing serious, a small amount of blood, and it would be fine. Told the man to be more careful in future. Watching as they ate, the bond between Izzy and Brandon was nice. She was obviously comfortable in this room, with all of them, and they were all here, he and his whole unit. Hadn't looked at him with fear when she'd come out of Eddie's room, seemed she was all good. Playing with Brandon, trying to get him to eat her vegetables. Clearly, he did not want to at all. This was normal, it seemed. Watched as Brandon was relaxed at the table, swatting Izzy's fork away and shoving at her. He could tell this lot ate together on a regular basis. The boy interacted with her as though she was a normal member of his family. Looked at her like an aunt, a good thing he thought. Even got to see that Piper smiled at the antics that were going on between the two of them, shook her head a few times, used to seeing it. Wouldn't surprise him if, in a better setting, she would play back in the same manner. Piper's very poor introduction of him to Brandon when he asked her to introduce them, seeing that it was clear she was not going to. "Brandon, your father," waved a hand in his general direction, was very disrespectful and he didn't like it. Then told him that Brandon already knew who he was, that she had not lied to the boy about who he was. That was a good thing, but telling her that was not a proper introduction didn't get him anywhere at all either. She simply looked at him with a raised eyebrow and stated she couldn't exactly follow protocol now, could she? She had him on that, but a nicer way of doing it could have been done. All he had really wanted was for her to state, "Brandon, this is Bradley. He's your father." Was that really so hard a thing to ask? He didn't think so. What he wanted and what he was getting were two very different things. Then she simply told him to introduce himself. Both he and Benson were getting more than annoyed with her attitude and reluctance to assist in the current situation. They were both just staring at her, though Benson was not on the surface, couldn't be with Izzy right there. Had likely been a rogue for far too long, used to doing what she wanted, when she wanted, how she wanted. Damn near huffed, West had warned him about this. His mate had lived on her own out in the world away from his pack and didn't take kindly to orders, used to doing as she pleased. Piper was going to be the same. Though he was certain Piper had a slight advantage over Joanne's position. Joanne had been one of West's pack members and had to follow orders. Piper here was a rogue and knew it, also knew he could not actually make her. She did not have to take orders from him. It was likely she also knew he was going to have to keep his alpha temper reined in, around Izzy, a human, and his son, who he'd just met today and thought all wolves were mean and nasty. Brandon's reply to him introducing himself was as cold as his mother's, "I know Mum told me already," when I asked. It sounded unemotional and very dismissive, almost as though the boy did not care at all that he was his father. It was entirely possible the boy was 7 and had used in the human world, likely had friends who didn't have dads out there. He'd not had a father all his life. He had no idea if the boy's wolf considered him family at all, even though they understood what he was to them, could well not care, considering all other interactions with wolves. Told him it was nice to meet him, hoping for something from the boy at all, even smiled right at him. He was genuinely happy to meet him, spend time with him, and be in the same room with him. Still itched to touch the boy, would love to get that father-to-son hug, but from everything or lack thereof, it was unlikely he was going to get that hug anytime soon. Was barely a minute later when he heard Piper draw in a long deep breath and suddenly Eddie's Gamma's southern drawl rolled right out of him. "Piper, it's okay." He only now realized that something else was going on. His eyes moved right to her. He had been focused on Brandon till this point. No longer. She looked impassive him, almost devoid of all emotions, but he knew that was only on the surface. Eddie's reaction spoke volumes. Her hands were stilled above her plate, as though she was focused on it. Something else was going on inside her mind. "You touch me, Edward, you'll lose that hand," he heard her mutter. A moment after his Gamma had spoken to her, trying to use his charm on he, to ease whatever it was she was feeling right this minute, had very good control of her facial expression. He realized she was unreadable to him. But not to Eddie, couldn't get past that man and his instincts. He also noted that Piper did not so much as even look in Eddie's direction, felt his aura roll right out of him. Bradley supposed she might no longer live as Wolf did, but had lived inside the pack most of her life, knew what a Gamma was, how they worked. He realized she knew he was going to try and touch her, not that Eddie had moved at all. Izzy was suddenly up and stalking away from Eddie, yanked her arm right out of his hand when he latched onto her to see what was wrong. It was clear the man had no idea what was going on, and to be honest, neither did Bradley. As far as he could tell, Eddie hadn't done anything wrong. Watched as Eddie stood, so did Piper for that matter, told Brandon to stay here, and then halted Eddie with a simple hand gesture, then turned and went after Izzy. It was clear Piper knew what had just happened. Without a doubt, she also knew it was Eddie who had just upset her friend. The poor man looked more than confused as he watched his human mate slam the door to his bedroom behind her, looked right at Bradley for clarification. He shook his head, saw the man look to all of them in turn. Neither of them knew, which only confused him even further. On the bright side, Izzy didn't leave the suite and set Timber off. Just stalked into Eddie's room. Bonded to him likely in some way. That was good. He noticed that Brandon was looking right at the closed door. His mother had just followed Izzy through. His head was tilted ever so slightly to the right. Made Bradley smile. His boy was using his wolf's hearing to hear what was going on in that room. So very protective, and now he realized not just of his mother. Wondered if Aspen fancied himself as the alpha wolf to his very tiny pack, which included just the three of them. It was very possible. He did display all the markings of an alpha, trying to protect what was his. Realized that Piper had left Brandon alone in this room with him and his entire alpha unit. A little trust, it seemed, had been granted. A good thing. Tuned his hearing into the room where both Izzy and Piper were, as he knew everyone else in the room was doing. None of them understood what happened and were all curious. Heard Piper try to console Izzy, who had apparently taken Eddie's use of his gamma charm as he was looking at Piper in more than a normal way. She actually thought the man was interested in Piper, couldn't be further from the truth. Sighed when he heard her sob, saw Eddie move instantly head right for the room himself. Leave it. Bradley shot down the mind link at him. Piper knows her better. Let her calm Izzy. She thinks I'm going to cheat on her. Eddie shot right back. He clearly wanted to go in there and sort it out. Because you have done this all backwards. Just wait. Let Piper help her. He had a feeling this was not new to Piper, that she had seen this before with her friend, dealt with it before. Piper also knew that Izzy was Eddie's mate. Eddie was prowling back and forth, listening to Piper try and explain Eddie's job to her. Bradley's eyes moved to Brandon. He was focused on that room, listening intently, it seemed. Likely this would be the first of any type of explanation of anything for him. Piper was in there trying to make Eddie's job relate as best she could to the human world. That made Bradley smile a little. She was actually helping to sway Izzy to be Eddie's mate. Which was a good thing, not just for Izzy and Eddie, but it allowed him to see she wasn't totally against a mate bond. She was actively encouraging Izzy to go to the pack with Eddie, wanted her friend to be happy, it seemed. Though it hurt to hear her say no one out there cared about her, or looked at her like that, sighed heavily to himself when he heard her state that he only cared about his son and nothing more. Found Brandon's eyes right on him, accusingly so at that. There was a full flicker of Aspen right there. He too was mad about that statement. That's not true, Bradley told them both softly. Could tell the boy and his wolf didn't actually believe him, and his statement spoke volumes. I won't live with you. Not without Mum. The boy told him, and there was anger in their words. His eyes were flickering between his wolf and his own. They were both in agreement. I'm not going to take you away from your mother. I want both of you to come home. To be a family, he told him. Perhaps having the boy understand might help the situation. Didn't want to use him like this, but it was clear to Bradley that Brandon understood their situation, or Piper had told him that Bradley could just come along and take him away anytime he liked, because he was the alpha of a pack. Saw the boy's eyes turn back to his plate, did not want to talk to him anymore, so like his mother he was, but what else could he expect? She was the one raising him. He would, of course, take after her, only had her to look up to. This could be more difficult than he thought. Heard Eddie thank Piper for her help, and watched her come out of Eddie's room alone, left Izzy and Eddie and Man. There to talk, he supposed. She glanced at them all. They were all watching her. Mostly because they were all shocked that she had just helped Eddie keep his mate, and none of them had really expected that from her. She had in all likelihood talked her friend into marrying the watched her as she reassured Brandon that Izzy all right. Heard Harry thank her for her help. Not that she cared, told him that she hadn't done it for Eddie. She wanted her friend to be happy, even if that meant losing her herself. Remarked that Izzy would likely be staying there from now on, then just told him she and Brandon could leave. She had only come here as he suspected. For Izzy. Trying to get her to stay, even saying please. Didn't work, just elicited a comment of I don't belong there, never did, from her. That hurt him. She did belong there, had always belonged there with him. Tried again to tell her that she did belong there, told her he wanted her there, reached out to touch her, wanted her to realize their mate bond was still intact. He knew she could smell his scent, that was a given, but it had been a long time since she'd left, and not once would she have felt any pains of betrayal. Would have likely convinced herself that her rejection was in effect, easy enough to come to that conclusion for her. But smelling him would also be confusing for her. Watched her actively take a step back away from him, from his outstretched hand. This was not the first time either. He was not certain if she didn't want any wolves touching her, or just him. She had warned both his beta and gamma about touching her, told them both they would loose their hands in fact. So perhaps it wasn't just him. Told him no, to go back, to leave, even used the word please. As much as he wanted her to come home, she didn't want to. He couldn't walk away from he, stepped right in front of her, careful not to touch her, didn't want to set Harper off, and he got the impression it would. Tried to tell her he understood, that he did know her life inside the pack was not nice, apologized to her for it. Was practically begging her to have dinner with him. Not something he had ever had to do, most wanted to have dinner with him. He'd never had to beg for anything in his life. He was the alpha, always got what he wanted. Now here he was an alpha begging a rogue female for just one meal, to allow them to sit down and talk privately, to sort everything out. He didn't want to have this conversation in front of their son. That was why he was asking for a private dinner. He was going to lose her now that Izzy was going to be part of the pack, had no leverage to get her back here to talk to him. Yes, she stated flatly, right to his face, believed it was too much of him to ask of her. I do not want. Enough, he cut her off, angry now. Snapped it right at her, uncaring his son was right there at this moment to see his temper. He had a wolf who also had a temper. Bradley could already feel the pain. She hadn't even voiced the damned words, and he knew what was coming, and he didn't want to hear it. Practically yelled at her, I don't want to hear it. Don't do it, Piper, it hurts. Then stalked himself right out of the hotel room, before he lost full control of himself and let Benson out in a fit of rage over her trying to reject them once more. Bradley did understand how her life had been, but he had also suffered. For 8 long years, he'd had a mate who'd run away from him, through no real fault of his own. They had not known who she was to them, and how could they, with that damned pendant around her neck? He wanted nothing more than to go back down there and rip the damned thing right off her neck, claim what he was damned certain was his, make her forgive him, and drag her home. Made her right into submission until she accepted him and his wolf as her mate. Left not just the room but the damned floor to stop himself from doing just that. His father had told him not to take her pendant off under any circumstances, and especially not around his unit. Bradley already knew it was because they would all likely turn on her. It's what that contract stated. Also, what Alpha Timothy had said, worried about her being raped. In fact, so Bradley was certain turn on her meant that they would all be trying to get a piece of her, regardless that she was their alpha's mate. Found himself out on the roof stalking around, his fists balled trying to calm not just himself down but his wolf. He'd ignored his beta's mind link, shut it off and pushed it away, needed more than a minute to himself. Though it didn't take Cooper long to find him, likely used his tether to his alpha to locate him. The man stood just watching him for several minutes then sighed. It's going to be all right, Brad. Just take a breath. Calm down. What the hell do you think I'm trying to do up here? He snapped. Calm down. Yeah, telling someone to calm down really works. Not even Brandon wants to come home. He shot at his beta. He's little and he's scared. Never likely had to deal with wolves prior to Alpha Timothy. And right now we're not exactly putting our best foot forward. Are we? Bradley glared at the man. He was trying his best. Brad, Eddie took Izzy. You heard what Brandon said, he was scared we'd hurt her. Yelling at his mother? Not a good idea either. Raised his hands at Brad to halt the yelling that was about to burst out of him. I understand you're upset. That's why you yelled. I begged her, Coop, and still nothing. Bradley grated out. I know, the man sighed. You knew this was not going to be easy, Brad. A long road to getting her, even longer to getting her inside the pack itself. You knew this, coming here. Bradley closed his eyes and tilted his head skyward, took a breath in. He did know this, right from the beginning. This was just day one of his pursuit of his mate. He was just so used to getting his own way all the time that he obviously had no idea how to deal with not getting his way. Shook his head as he was right. He was arrogant and did expect everyone to just fall at his feet, was used to people just doing what he wanted when he wanted without so much as a flicker of an eyelid. Piper was never going to be like that. If he was this angry and annoyed by her resistance on just the first day of trying to get her to come home, how was he going to cope every other day she tried to, or managed to tell him she didn't want him or anything to do with him or his pack? I know, co-op, he finally sighed. Breathe, Bradley. His beta sighed. Just breathe. Harry is taking her back to her room. Dinner will be at 6. That got his attention. His eyes moved to Cooper. What? How? He couldn't wrangle a dinner with her. How had his Delta managed to do it? Saw Cooper look at him a little on the guilty side. Well, that's actually mine and Harry's fault. Fault? Tell me you did not threaten her. He was going to kill them both if they did. No, of course not. I told her. Saw the man look very apologetically at him. That she nearly killed you once, sorry. And well, Harry has reported to me that he followed on from my lead. Told her you'd felt her rejection. How you reacted to it. Including nearly ripping your own heart out. Then he escorted her and Brandon back to their room. Brad sighed. Not much he could do about it. Harry didn't want to go direct to you. Thought it was better coming from me. He mind-linked me while I was waiting on you to calm down. Told Piper he would pick her up at 6. Apparently she looked very confused. Harry said he thinks she might actually believe us. Stood staring at the man. His men, it seemed, had taken matters into their own hands. It was something he had wanted to discuss with her over this dinner. Tell her he'd felt it, had refused to accept it, try to start sorting it out, apologize for not knowing all that time and causing her so much pain. Now he guessed most of that was done for him. Would she have dinner with him now? Did she say anything? Not that I am aware of. You might want to go and talk to Harry. Be mindful, Brad, that both of us were just angry along with you, at her disrespect and dismissing of you and your plea. We were just trying to help you. Kind of sounded like he was trying to see about punishment for overstepping their bounds. I know this. Bradley nodded. I'm not particularly angry with either of you. And he wasn't. Kind felt a bit calmer about his situation, actually. They had reduced his stress, and his wolves, it seemed. I would have preferred to do it myself, but it's out now, so thanks, Brad. I don't think Harry or I want a beating from you. Bradley's brow furrowed as he looked at the man, then realized he was just trying to lighten the mood. Another time, huh? I'm sure you'll trip up somewhere. Might have already done that. You're just unaware of it, he murmured, but wouldn't look at Bradley. Gained Bradley's attention. All right, what did you do? Cooper shook his head. Discuss it another time. Back in the pack. It can wait. Come on, you still got Izzy to sort out. Izzy's fine. Piper practically convinced that woman to marry Eddie. We'll need bloody earplugs every night now. Cooper snorted. You could just order him not to do that. Yeah, and I'm sure that would work. Bradley muttered. His bloody gamma had no control. He was certain, even with an order on him, that man and his wolf would find a way around it somehow. Looked at his watch. It was barely 2 p.m. Dinner was at 6. Where for dinner? He asked. Our suite. The rest of us will make ourselves scarce, with exception of Eddie, of course. All right. Bradley nodded. I need a suit. Let's go and get some decent clothes. Chapter 37. Piper POV. Piper was just staring out the window of her hotel suite. She still did not know what to make of all she'd heard from Cooper the Pack Beta or Harrison the Pax Delta. She had no idea at all if any of the words that either of them had stated were true, though both of their demeanors had matched their words. Concern for their alpha, she had heard that, but how could they really know that she had uttered a rejection at all? There was no way that they could know that. So why would either of them say such things if they didn't know? It didn't really make all that much sense to her. Bradley had not known who she was at the time, so how could it have possibly affected him at all? She herself had not even known at the time if her rejection would work at all, not with only one of them knowing what they were to each other. Piper had known that for a rejection to work normally, both parties had to not only know who they were to each other, had to be face to face, and the one hearing the rejection had to verbally accept that rejection. School had classes on the mate bond, so everyone understood who it worked, the meeting of your mate, the scenting of them. How it was supposed to go. The acceptance or rejection of your mate, and the formality if a rejection was made. Name and title to be stated along with that rejection, though it was frowned upon. Most would be encouraged to accept their bond. There, however, was only one lesson about rejecting one's mate. Because most wolves did not reject each other, they were drawn to each other and couldn't or didn't want to rip that feeling of being with your other half apart. It was stated it was painful. And it had been. There had been examples of it. Though usually to do with those two wolves having horrible pasts or hating each other already prior to finding out they were goddess-gifted mates. Even then, some would begrudgingly accept each other and allow their bond to grow and flourish, and it was said they could overcome their history and love each other, their bond strong enough to bring them together. "Mum?" Piper turned her eyes on Brandon. "What's wrong, sweetie?" she asked him. Is what they said true? He asked her, clearly having been thinking about it himself. He had been right there to hear both Cooper and Harrison's words. "I don't know, to be honest," she sighed. She would not lie to him. She did not know, was actually very confused about the situation right this minute. He was looking up at her, frowning himself, watched her for a long, quiet moment. "That man, he told me, he wants us to be family. All of us, you, me and him, all together." It was Piper's turn to frown now. "When did he do that?" she asked. She had not heard Bradley say that. "When you went in with Aunt Izzy and told her, he only wanted me, not you. He told me, that's not true, that he wanted us both." She sighed. They'd obviously talked while she was in the Izzy. She'd missed something. "What else did he say?" she asked him. "That he won't take me away from you." Piper had heard Bradley say that before. This was not the first time he'd said that. "That is good to hear," she acknowledged. If Bradley had told Brandon that, he wasn't likely to go back on his word. It would only lead to the boy accusing him of being a liar in all likelihood. So perhaps he did actually mean that he wouldn't take Brandon from her, but she could not see him wanting to leave the boy out in the human world with her, and she did not want to go back to being invisible inside a pack. No, not again. Being constantly bumped into and blamed for not watching where she was going. She'd had enough of that. She and Harper would end up right back where they had started, alone, living in a room all by themselves, to stay away from it all, once more completely non-existent. She felt pain touch her at just the thought of it. They did not want that at all. Couldn't deal with that again. It had made for a very lonely childhood and teenage years, not to mention adulthood. She was likely going to have to work out some sort of agreement with the man. She knew he was going to want Brandon within the pack. His child would be safer inside it. Or at least he would think so. Wondered now had he even known who she was? What she was to him. If he had figured it out, how had he? Piper knew that he could not send her at all. No one could. It didn't make any sense to her. She sighed and sat down. She was going to have dinner with him, even if only to sort out some sort of custody agreement, where Brandon was concerned. Looked right at her son. He was restless once more. "What do you want?" she asked him. "I don't understand." He frowned at her. "Do you want to get to know him, your father? Go and live with him." Those words hurt, but he did have the right to live inside a pack. It was how wolves normally lived. "I don't know," he shrugged. "Might want to think about that," she offered up. "It's what he wants, isn't it?" Brandon stated. "I believe so." Piper nodded. "We live in Portland. Where does he live?" "In Montana," she answered simply. "That's a long way from her home." He frowned again. "It is." Piper nodded. The man had already gone so far as to try and pack up her house and move it to his pack. Not only was it very rude and arrogant of him, it was bloody weird. "Can I go and look at what a pack looks like?" Yes, in all likelihood. She didn't think Bradley would say no. He was not likely to decline the boy's request, simply because it meant that the boy was not only curious, but also maybe open to the idea of going to his pack full-time. "Will you come?" She could see the worry in his eyes. He knew she didn't want to. She had told him as much. But the pack did back onto the edge of a human city. She could stay there, she supposed, get some agreement out of Bradley to make sure the boy was returned to her. "I don't exactly know how to answer that, Brandon," she told him truthfully. "You don't want to?" "Not particularly, but I guess if it was just for one day, I could suck it up." Saw him stare right at her for another long minute before asking, was it really so bad there? This was a very hard conversation. It was very bad there for her. Not for others. He might not be like her. He might fit right in and love it there. Then what was she going to do if he did? She wouldn't be able to take him away from that. If they could scent him and he could be recognized, he would probably really love it inside the pack. Only for me, not for everyone else. She finally answered him in the end. Honestly, Brandon, you might like it there, fit in. Which is something I never did. Are you worried? About the other woman. Piper sighed. There would always be another woman. She knew that. Hated it, in fact, but it was how it had always been. There will always be someone else for your father, Brandon. She admitted, heard the pain, couldn't actually hide it all when saying it out loud. But he said, I know what he told you. She looked at him sadly. It is difficult. He loves you. But not you. She heard the sadness in her own child's voice, wondered if that was more Aspen's thoughts. Wolves were born with the knowledge that they had a mate out there. And them, she shrugged, didn't want to voice that one out loud, but it was all she had ever known at the same time. Bradley had never recognized her, never loved her. He had enjoyed one night with her, and moved on, as she had to. Aspen is very confused. I'm sure he is, and Piper did not doubt that for a second. His wolf was likely wondering why his wolf parents weren't together. Wolves mated for life, usually only produced offspring to their actual mate. He might be young, but he was born with the knowledge of having a mate. What is a mate bond? Brandon asked her a few minutes later, shocking her a little. That had to be Aspen's thoughts on the subject, and Brandon wanted to understand. It's when two wolves are drawn together and belong to each other, they will mate for life. It's broken, isn't it? What's broken? She asked in return. Your mate bond. Aspen says it's broken. Yes, it was. She looked right at him. Aspen. She asked his wolf to come to the surface. Better just to talk to the wolf himself. Saw him push forward. Smiled a little sadly at him. My bond was one-sided only. Cursed by the moon goddess herself to suffer. Only I could feel it, he could not. Cannot even now. So broken is actually a good word for it. He not know who you are? His gravelly voice asked. No, never did. Very painful for me for many years. So I left. Harper and I were slowly dying, left to save ourselves. Saw him tilt his head, but me. Piper huffed. He wanted to know how he came about. What did she tell him? What was acceptable to a young wolf? She was not going to tell him he was an accident. Would hurt him, hurt Brandon too. I spent one night with him. Before left, she said simply, it was the truth. Still he not know, his wolf not dumb, it seemed, really wanted answers. No, a one-sided bond, Aspen, only I knew. She watched as his wolf receded, saw Brandon look right up at her. He looked so very confused. It's very complicated. She sighed, and he just nodded without saying anything else. Probably overwhelmed as well as confused. He would have his own thoughts, and then he would also hear Aspen's thoughts. He was too young for this kind of knowledge. She had explained it as best she could without putting either her or Bradley in a bad light, or at least she hoped that was the case. Bradley was not about to just go away. She knew very little of him herself. But no alpha was about to give up an heir. She knew that much. Brandon, why don't you look him up on your phone? He'll have a human profile. Might give you some information about him. I have no knowledge of him. I left him well enough alone. Piper saw him nod his head slowly, but didn't see him do it. Other things on his mind, she supposed. I will have dinner with him and try and sort something out, where you're concerned, if you want me to. He nodded again, but still said nothing. Piper encouraged him to play one of his PS5 games, to take his mind off of the situation at hand. It would have been better if the Beta and the Delta had kept their mouths shut with Brandon in the room. Izzy came into the suite at 3 p.m. Eddie stopped at the door when he dropped her off, didn't come inside, glanced at Piper for only a moment, then looked down Izzy, smiled right at her, leaned down and kissed her gently on the mouth and told her he would see her later, then stepped away. She watched as Izzy closed the door and came right into the room. Hi. Didn't expect to see you, Piper commented. Edward thought it would be better if I were here with you and Brandon. Shook her head, told me he would miss me every second I was not with him, but knew you and Brandon were worried about me. We are, Piper acknowledged as Izzy sat next to her. You might want to go and shower. You smell like Edward. Oh, she stood. I didn't realize. It's normal, Piper shrugged. Brandon was looking up at Izzy. She leaned down and ruffled his hair. Hey, kiddo. He smiled up at her, happy to see her, to it seemed. Piper did note that when Izzy came out of her room, she did not bring a suitcase with her. She was expecting her to stay up in their suite from now on, with Edward. You're going to stay here? Not with Edward. I barely know Edward. I told him I'd date him, but I have to have my space too. Bet he wasn't happy about that. Not the space part. He frowned right at me, like he didn't understand why I needed it. He doesn't, Piper informed her. What is it with them? That is for Edward to explain. Bradley maybe, considering the circumstances. What circumstances? Izzy, they have certain protocols when bringing people to Drake Industries' gated community. Edward has followed 0 of them from my knowledge, supposed to wait for the full moon, then ask you out, date you properly, dinners, movies, you know the regular kind of things, then introduce you to his parents, to Bradley himself. Invite you to stay at their home and see if you like it, and then go from there. Usually takes 1 to 2 months, depending on the relationship and how you progress. Oh, so I'm like, you're fine, but Edward is rushing everything. I imagine his boss is not too pleased with his behavior. You, however, are not to blame, and no one will say you are. He already talked about getting married. She shook her head. It's too soon, I told him. He pouted right at me and then. Enough. Piper shook her head. I can well imagine how he tried to sway you. She had been able to smell Edward on Izzy, seduced her or tried to, in order to get his way. He's so weird, Piper. Only to you. From what I am seeing, where I grew up, it's normal. It's just how it is. He's your weirdo now. She half smiled, so you'll be sleeping in our suite. Saw Izzy nod, yes. All right, I don't really want him in this room overnight. Saw Izzy laugh, I'm okay with that. He might not be. Piper shook her head. It was very unlikely that Edward was going to want to sleep in bed by himself when his mate was in the same building. It was very clear the man couldn't keep his hands to himself, or any other part of himself for that matter. Chapter 38. Piper POV. It was 6 p.m. and as if on cue, there was a short, sharp rap on the door. She took a deep breath. Brandon did actually want her to go and have dinner with his father. He'd voiced it about an hour ago. It had been softly spoken, but she knew it was important to him, so she stood up and walked over to answer the door. Piper had not bothered to get changed. She always dressed nicely, and she was not going to dress up for this man. She was not going because she and Harper wanted to go. No, she was going because of Brandon. Though Izzy had tried to talk her into putting one of her newly purchased dresses on. Piper had just raised an eyebrow at her and stated flatly, it's not that kind of dinner. Izzy, however, did not seem totally convinced about that, made her wonder if Edward had asked her to try and convince her to wear something nice. They had been texting back and forth all afternoon. Brandon was currently sitting on the lounge with Izzy. He and Izzy had both eaten already, the pair of them apparently starving by 1700. Had ordered room service. They were now just hanging out together watching TV. She had already told Brandon that she likely wouldn't be gone all that long. It was just dinner to find out exactly what Bradley wanted, and once she did, she would come home. He had just nodded at her. She didn't exactly know what the boy or his wolf wanted from this meeting. They had not voiced anything so far. Not even so much as any questions they wanted her to ask of the man. Harrison stood on the other side of the door, no surprise there. He had been the one who'd told her to come to dinner, and that he'd be the one to collect her as well. He smiled right at her and nodded in greeting, moved his eyes briefly over her outfit. She'd noted the slight frown as she had closed the door behind her. Unhappy Harrison, that I did not dress up for your alpha, she stated in a bored tone, and saw his frown deepen instantly. He's lucky I have any decent clothes at all. I am a rogue, you know. Not many of us with that status get to have nice things. I suppose you have me on that, and you can call my Harry, Piper, he told her as he pressed the elevator button. I probably could, she acknowledged. Could you lessen the attitude just a little? He stated calmly. Could you go away? She replied and heard him sigh, but he said nothing further. Walked her all the way to room 1008 and swiped them into the room, but he did not follow her in. She frowned at him. He said nothing as she walked past him, saw Cooper heading out of the room himself as well. "Try and have a nice dinner, Piper," Cooper commented as he walked past her and then closed the door behind him. That just left her with Edward and Bradley. The Nan himself was standing by the table they'd had lunch at. He had changed from his jeans and button-up short-sleeve shirt to a dark charcoal gray suit and a crisp white dress shirt under the jacket. She did note his hair was nearly combed back, and he'd seemed to have gone and shaved, no an ounce of 50 clock shadow on his face. Apparently showered and dressed himself up for this dinner, she didn't understand him. Edward was casually sitting on the couch. She knew he was texting Izzy and had been bugging her all afternoon. She also knew why he was here, the Gamma here to try and control her if she got angry, she thought. Felt heart bristle a little at the thought of that man touching them. "Welcome, Piper," she heard Bradley say, even heard the smile in his voice, wondered why Cooper and Harrison had left the room altogether. Was he trying to appear less of a threat, though she was certain those two had not gone far. Likely just outside the door or down the corridor, perhaps to her floor. Turned her eyes on the man briefly after looking at Edward, and then walked over to the table, saw him turn to Edward and sat herself down as he asked his Gamma to please retire to his room. Edward simply got up and went, just like he was told. Did as the Alpha bid, just like all wolves did. "I would have gotten your chair for you, Piper." She could hear the frown in his voice. "I know how to sit down," she told him with a shrug. Heard him sigh. He sat himself across from her. "I am glad you came. I wasn't actually sure that you would. I'm just here to discuss Brandon and the current situation he and I find ourselves in," she told him honestly. "Brandon asked me to come. I would like, then, to discuss more than just Brandon, Piper. You watched him tilt his head slightly, unlikely his wolfen senses would pick up anything about how she felt. Quite honestly, she'd been surprised that Edward had been able to pick up anything during lunch. "Annoyed, I'm guessing. You're a hard woman to read, unless angry." That comes across loud and clear. Piper's eyes rolled before she knew it. Why wouldn't she be annoyed at being forced to do as he wanted her to? He'd been doing nothing but trying to make her do as he wanted since the minute he had walked back into her life. "Say what you have to say," she commented. "Would you like a glass of wine? Before dinner gets here?" "No, I don't drink wine, but if you want one, go ahead." She was not going to let alcohol dull her senses, and who knew if he'd brought wolfen-strength alcohol with him? It was possible. "Perhaps something else for you then?" "No," she shook her head slightly. "What I would really like is to just get down to business," and she would. She knew how to handle a wealthy, arrogant man. Did it all the time, in fact. The only difference between him and them was what he actually was, a wolf. And what he had once been to her, and the scent he was somehow still putting off. She did not understand how she could still smell him. Likely just one more thing. The moon goddess wanted to throw at her, punish her with it, for whatever she had done to deserve such a thing. Still had no idea about that. It wasn't enough, it seemed, to not have her own mate, not send her back, or to have to have put up with years of pain. No, she also had to keep this man's scent nice and strong for her as well. The woman was probably up there in her realm, fully amused with herself, laughing her ass off. At this new torture she'd thought up for her, just had to bring this man right back into her life, to make her suffer all over again. "This is not a business dinner, Piper, I assure you. This is personal only." There was a knock on the door. "Excuse me, that will be dinner." He stood and went to get it. Brought the tray right to the table himself, placed a meal in front of her, its crispy sesame beef, with rice and steamed vegetables. He told her as he placed it on the table. It did actually look nice and smelled delicious as well. "I also got you a mocha cheesecake for dessert. I hope that is okay." "It's fine," she answered him. She did like both chocolate and coffee. Never actually had a mocha-flavored cheesecake before. Was curious about how it would taste. She didn't mind drinking a mocha coffee herself. Saw him sit. Actually did know it was rude to eat before he sat. Likely should wait until he actually ate his first bite. She was certain that there was some sort of proper protocol to be followed here, and she didn't know what would tick him off. Might very well be completely disrespectful if she just ate without waiting on him to eat first. She could feel his eyes on her as she sat and waited on him to start his meal. Her eyes were actually on her meal. It was well presented. Raised an eyebrow at him after about 30 seconds of feeling it. "What's wrong, Piper? Do you not like the food?" he asked her. "It looks fine. Smells nice even," she admitted. "Then what is wrong?" he asked, a frown on his face. "You have to eat first, I believe. That would be correct protocol of an alpha to a rogue." She shrugged that a rogue had no status and was eat last if at all. If she was inside, a pack would likely be in a cell or on the floor somewhere. "I'm be expecting you to worry about such protocols. Please eat. We are equals at this table right now." She frowned right at him, but then picked up her fork to eat her meal. She had also been hungry when Brandon and Izzy had had dinner delivered. Both of them had gotten massive burgers and fries, and Izzy had refused to allow her spoil her appetite and pick chips off either of their plates. "How is Brandon doing? Did I scare him?" "I didn't mean to." "No, he doesn't seem to be scared." "He is confused," she answered him honestly. "Good. I don't want him to be afraid of me or Benson. Or the unit, in fact." She was certain that he didn't want that at all. "What sort of custody agreement do you want from me?" Piper asked, getting right down to the point of this dinner. There was silence for a long time, and when she finally looked up from her meal, to him, he was frowning at her once more. His hands were poised over his meal. Seemed her direct question had halted him. Wondered if he wasn't used to people questioning him. "I don't want shared custody, Piper. Wolves don't generally do that." "If that is what you're asking?" "Is it?" "It is," she clarified. Knew he would not particularly want an agreement. Knew he would want Brandon all to himself. Inside his pack. "I have a life, businesses to run, and your Gamma is about to take away my full-time business manager, I believe. Izzy actually runs the entire company most of the time. I was about to promote her to a full partner with this move. She is invaluable to me, to my businesses. So I am already losing something to you. I am not about to go give up everything to you. So I guess shared custody, though not traditional, is the option here. It's not, Piper. I want you and Brandon both to live with me, be part of the pack once more." "Not going to happen. Harper and I have no interest in living inside a pack, period." "Can I hear that from Harper herself?" "You could if she wanted to come forward. She does not, and her wolf did not have any interest at all." Right this minute, Harper was actually at the very back of her mind, curled up in a ball, trying to look or listen, or smell the man who still smelled like her mate to her. A man that would never acknowledge her as such. She was actually in pain right this minute, from just being in this room with him. Would only surface if there was a threat to them, or they tried to touch her. She did not want to be anywhere near her old mate, didn't want to be around any wolf at all, let alone the one that would never look at her the way she had always wanted him to. This man was the very reason for their pain, for all those years. This man was the very reason she no longer wanted to be a wolf herself. "Is Harper all right?" he asked quietly. Piper raised an eyebrow at him now. "What concern is my wolf to you?" She really just wanted to yell at him. You never cared before, but she did not. It was really hard being in this room with him. All her walls were up, but still, after hearing what his Beta and Delta had said, she too was confused. But it was just her. Harper would not be a part of this. Benson is very worried about Harper. He's hardly seen her, and when he has, he sighed, she is all aggression all the time. "Is she all right, Piper?" "No, she does not like being around wolves, and you're currently forcing her to be," she stated flatly. "I don't mean to be Piper, we, Benson and I." He sighed again, and she watched as he put his knife and fork down and looked right at her. "We believe you are our mate." That got her attention, really? "Do you scent me?" she asked, barely kept the bitterness out of her voice. She knew they could not, knew the answer even before he said it. "No," he shook his head, "but there are telltale signs, and with you being a Whitlock, it's difficult. Apparently all Whitlocks are unscentable. Alpha Timothy states there is a Whitlock way to see if am your mate. Well, good for him. He's an asshole. Done nothing but threaten me and my son." She snapped right at him. "Threatened to sick the Wolfen Council on me, in fact." To have me sent to Wolfen prison, to separate me from my son. So I wouldn't go putting any stock into what that alpha says. She got up from the table and walked away. Didn't want to talk anymore. Saw him block her exit, used his wolf speed to do so. Also saw Edward step right out of his room. It was likely her agitation at what Alpha Timothy wanted had brought him out of his room, and she knew she was not going to be able to outmuscle Bradley, who was blocking her exit. Stared right at him, her jaw tight, then just turned and walked to the other side of the room very annoyed. He was not willing to let her leave. She now realized he was not going to until he was ready, likely till he got what he wanted. His own way. Regardless of what he'd said, she knew that no wolf would claim another without scenting them. Harper knew this. His words tonight had not brought her wolf forward, only made her tuck her head further into herself. Didn't, it seemed, want to know what he thought. Thoughts did not count. Nothing but him actually scenting her out would, and even Piper had no idea what Harper would do if he did actually find a way to scent them out. If Harper would come forward, acknowledge him, their bond, if that was still intact, that was. Piper, please sit down. Alpha Timothy went about this all the wrong way. He's actually your cousin, a Whitlock himself. Her eyes moved to him, and how would you know that? His pack is affiliated with mine. There is actually a very old agreement, which I knew nothing about until after you and I had our first encounter in Portland. Some very old rules around you and your mother, in fact. My mother is long dead, she commented. I'm aware when you were 101 believe. It's also when you vanished from the pack. Vanished? She shot right at him. I didn't vanish. You all abandoned me. To fend for myself. Even took my home away from me. She snarled at him. I don't want to talk about it. She yelled, and she didn't need to recall how much hurt or how alone she had felt for all those years. Piper, please calm down. We need to talk about this, to sort it all out. I only know very little. I do, however, know you need to come home. Talk to the Whitlock elders. Let them explain things to you. They want to talk to you. Oh, do they? They abandoned me as much as your pack did. Why the hell would I care to see them? Please calm down. She watched him walk towards her. His hands were up slightly, outstretched as though he was going to touch her. Felt Harper's attention be drawn by the thought he was going to touch her. Looked like he was going to. Lifted her head and turned to look out of Piper's eyes to see just what the situation was. Her ears were suddenly flat back on her head. She too did not like the way he was approaching them. Piper, everything is going to be okay, he told her softly as he walked towards he. Her eyes flicked to Edward. She could feel his aura being rolled right at her. He was also closer than he'd been before, she now realized. I warned you once, Gamma. She shot right at him, feeling Harper walk forward inside her mind. Her tail was low and her hackles were up. She did not want to be touched by either of them. Piper, honey, just calm down. I'm right here. Look at me. His southern drawl rolled right out of him as he reached out a hand toward her. Felt Harper bristle inside her mind, and a low growl was emitted from her, for all to hear. She was letting them know herself she was unhappy with the situation, that she herself did not want to be touched by him. Watched as Edward stilled in his movement. She knew as well as he did that without touching her, and with her rogue status, he was very unlikely to have any real effect on her or Harper. He would actually need to lay his hands right on her to get that gift of his to work, if it would at all. Piper, listen to me. You know you want to. Please calm down. Just focus on me. Edward was still trying to work on her. His drawl was thicker now, pushing more of his gamma charm at her. Harper snarled right at him. Then he moved, using his wolf speed to try and get a hand on her, so damned quick, but it seemed Harper was actually expecting it. She shot forward and snapped their foot right into his abdomen, with everything she had. A massive snarl ripped out of her at the same time, all her rogue aggression unleashed upon him. Roquets were fierce, primal instincts. She was no different to any that would attack a pack, not really. Just way more well-presented. Saw him actually stumble backwards. Clearly had not been expecting her to attack him, or maybe he thought he would simply be faster than she was. But they knew nothing of her wolf's power or speed. Nothing at all. Didn't even know what she actually looked like. There had been no one around to take Harper's photo for the pack's database. They had brief description, just what she had written herself. "Don't touch me." Harper roared at him, fully on the surface, didn't realize he wasn't the only one on the move, had been so focused on Edward and his gamma charm coming at them, him trying to put his actual hands on her to make it work, that they had taken their eyes off of Bradley altogether. They had turned completely to face Edward, to deflect anything he was sending their way, and they found Bradley suddenly right behind them. He had one of his arms around her waist, and she was lifted completely off the ground and pulled away from Edward, who was already getting up, felt his other hand slide right up her neck to hold he against him. Gasped out loud at the sudden sensations his bare hand brought to her skin. No, she cried out as she realized their bond was still in full swing. Felt Harper flee in an instant, whining in pain at the touch of her own mate. As Bradley held her in place up against him, his hand was on her neck and jaw. Though it was not tight or forceful, she realized he was trying to use his own touch on her to calm her down. "Shoo, I have you, Piper." His voice was soft and right in her ear, his lips brushing the outer skin of her ear. She could feel her own heart racing inside of her chest. "Stop it," she gasped as she felt his arm tighten around her, felt that hand slide down her neck slowly, could feel all the electric tingles of their mate bond. At his touch, everywhere his hand moved. Reached up to pry his hands off of her, felt it tighten. "Let me go." "I'm not going to let go," he told her. His voice was suddenly deeper. "Goddess Piper." There was suddenly a real roughness to his voice. "You feel so damned hot." His mouth touched her neck, and panic shot right through her. She couldn't go through this again. "Bradley!" She heard Edward suddenly yell, heard the warning in his voice, and Bradley suddenly let go of her and backed away. Piper staggered away from him. Her eyes moved to him. He was looking at his hand, the one that had been on her neck. Then his eyes moved right to her. "I'm sorry, Piper. Touching you. I can't. Our bond is still intact, Piper. We are mates." "I know it." "No," she shook her head. "It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. I rejected you." "I never accepted it." Bradley told her, looked right at her. "I will never accept it." Her eyes widened at his statement. She could feel Edward's aura pushing over her. He'd not stopped using it. Looked to see where the man was, and he was right there, his fingers a light feather touch on her, the side of her hand, skin on skin contact. "Shush, focus on me, Piper. Just me, nothing else." His southern drawl so very deep, she knew he was using all he had, everything in him, every damned ounce of that goddess-given gamma charm on her. Shook her head. Even as a rogue, it seemed he could draw her into him. Didn't want this. Felt his fingers slid across the back of her hand. "Listen to me, Piper. Calm down, honey. You know you want to." Was just standing there staring up into his eyes, drawn to him, trying desperately on the inside to fight him, fight that bloody charm, but seem at the same time to be enthralled by him and couldn't even look away, let alone step away. He was too strong. Felt his arm slid around her, then just pull her gently into his chest. "Shush, got you. Everything is going to be okay." "No, it's not," she whispered back. It never, and a sob escaped her. She knew it wouldn't be, regardless of his words, of the comfort he was trying to bring to her. It would never be all right. She was cursed to live a life of pain and suffering. But she'd never had anyone to comfort her before, and it felt nice to have that, right this minute. Knew it wouldn't last, nothing ever did. But just allowed herself to stand there, to feel his comfort wash over her. Couldn't even recall the last time anyone held her like this. Didn't exactly know for how long she stood there and let her tears fall. Finally, he murmured softly, "I can find you." I don't understand. I know, there's a lot going on. Let me walk you back to your room. We can talk tomorrow. All of us. You, Bradley, and we will all sit down." Piper didn't know what to think. She had rejected Bradley. She'd had no pains of betrayal since that day. How was that possible? It had been 8 years. "I don't understand," she murmured. "What don't you understand exactly?" Edward asked. His hands were still on her arms. The man seemed to know better than to just let go. There was still a slight drawl to his voice. She frowned up at him, and then her eyes moved to Bradley. He was standing on the other side of the room right now, watching them, watching her. She realized his attention was not on his gamma, but directly on her. Though as far as she recalled, he hadn't said a single word since Edward's hands had found her. Him, she stated. You don't understand Bradley? He questioned her as though he didn't understand her now. Piper shook her head. No pains in all the time I left. I know it worked because of that. She looked at Edward. Oh, Brad, would you like to explain that one to Piper? Her eyes moved back to him as well, though she felt her own hand actually reach out and grip onto Edward's arm. Didn't know if she wanted to hear what Bradley had to say, if she was honest with herself. When I found out what happened, Piper, I never touched another. Not one. In case it hurt you, I might not have known who you were or why you rejected me, but I had no idea if the rejection was complete or not. I knew deep down I would not accept it. Couldn't not without knowing who you were or why. So I have not touched another she-wolf in all that time, worried it would hurt you. I didn't want that for you. Piper was just staring at him. Didn't know if she believed that, but his touch had been what it was before she left, and she'd put up with a lot of pain. Knew because their bone was active when he was with another before. Being several states away wouldn't have stopped the pains of betrayal. It never had when he was outside the pack before. It's a lot to take in, Piper. I'm sorry, I touched you like that. I didn't mean to lose control like that just now. Saw him look right at his hand, you feel. Hot, burning hot to me and it. Sets of my need to. Mate you. I might not be able to scent you, but I can't control myself when I touch you. That is the bond, I'm guessing, how I feel it on my end. She doesn't feel hot to me, Edward commented. Just very confused. Good. She heard Bradley state, I'd likely rip your head off if you touched her like that. Blinked at his comment. Heard Edward snort, fully amused, so possessive already. Then his hand touched her face, so she'd look at him, and she did, come on, I'll walk you back. I think you've had about as much as you can handle. Piper nodded he was right, allowed him to walk her out of the room. He chuckled softly as they walked down the hallway. And you think I'm possessive? Brad is not going anywhere. He's been looking for his unknown mate for 8 years. How can you find something you don't even know about? Indeed. All he knew was how damned hot you felt to him. So he just went around touching everyone then? Piper asked, even more confused. Pretty much, shook every she-wolf's hand that he met, or allowed the back of his hand to brush against them, looking for that hot feeling. Never found it, though, because you ran a long way away. They arrived at her hotel door. She sighed, I probably look like a mess. Saw his eyes move over her face. Not that bad. Brandon will get upset. If he thinks I'm upset, she worried. Tell him we yell at each other, you and me. You kicked me good and proper, it's the truth. Might work, but then Izzy might get upset that I hurt you. Saw him chuckle, Izzy will be fine, probably think it's funny. That was likely true to a point. Chapter 39. Bradley POV. He was going to have to touch her skin on skin, but she was covered a long-sleeve silk blouse and slacks, had no choice but to slide his hand around her neck, prayed that she did not see it as a threat, but Harper was angry and about to take on Eddie. Had already kicked the man full rogue aggression was pouring out of her wolf. It was his only option left open to him. He couldn't have them going into a full rogue fight or flight, and that was exactly what he was seeing. He knew it was going to happen, but if, as he suspected, their mate bond was intact, his touch should actually be able to calm her. The minute his hand slid along her neck, he knew he was right. She was so damned hot to touch, just like before, just like that night in his bed. He could already feel his own heart rate increasing. Hearing her gasp, no, he knew she too was realizing they were still bonded to each other. There was no doubt anymore. He and Benson felt Harper practically vanish. Piper's whole body felt different to him. All the coiled tension was suddenly gone from her body instantly. Shoo. He shushed her, wanting her to calm down. Did not like seeing or hearing the pain she had as a child and teenager surface. It had also triggered her instantly into an angry, aggressive response. I have you, Piper, he told her softly. But already his eyes were closed. Touching her was starting to affect him, like it had done that night. He could also hear her heart rate as it tripled in speed, reacting to his touch or to her own fear of it. He wasn't sure which it was, pulled her tighter to his body, wanted to be closer to her. Stop, she'd gasped. but he couldn't slid his hand slowly down her neck, his fingertips tracing along her carotid artery, feeling her heart rate. Felt both her hands on his arm to try and stop him from touching her, but he couldn't, didn't want to. Every part of him wanted to touch every part of her. Let me go. He heard her. I'm not going to let go. He sighed softly. Didn't want to ever let go. Goddess Piper. She was like a bloody drug, and just one simple touch, and he was hooked, desperate for more. Benson pushed forward, drawn to her as much as Bradley was, as much as he had that night too. You feel so damn hot, they both told her, speaking together, and then his mouth was on her neck, a soft but firm kiss. She tasted so damned good to them. Bradley, it was Eddie yelling right at him. His eyes flicked right open, and only then did he realize what he was doing, the liberty he was taking. He let go instantly and stepped back away from her. His breathing was quickened and his hand felt like it was on fire, but didn't burn him. His eyes moved from his hand, so very hot from her touch, looked right at her. He'd screwed up, and royally so, lost damned control of himself, and she was freaked out. He could see it in her expression, in the way she was staring at him. I'm sorry, Piper. He apologized. Not only did he know he had to, he wanted to. He knew she didn't like being touched, that she was not at all ready for that, trying to explain it to her, how she felt to him. He couldn't even find the words. Our bond is still intact, Piper. We are mates, I know it. He finally managed to get out. No, he watched her shake her head, and he wondered for a moment if this was what every man felt touching her. Is this what Timothy meant? Why the threat? I rejected you, she said quietly. Relief flooded right through him as he heard her actually say those words. It should have hurt, but it didn't, because it confirmed to him that she was his actual mate, his goddess-gifted mate. She openly admitting to rejecting him, confirmed everything. I never accepted it, he told her, and he meant it. He never had. How could he, when he didn't know who or why? I never will accept it. He corrected his statement, and he was not going to. She was his mate, and their bond was still solid, still intact. He could win her over, just needed time, and he had plenty of that on his side. Saw Eddie's hand reach out to touch her, just his fingertips. He was on the move very slowly, trying, Bradley believed, not to attract her attention while she stood staring at him, his fingertips to the edge of her hand. The southern drawl that was produced by Eddie was deep and rich, the heaviest accent that Bradley had ever heard come out of the man. He was using everything he had on her, wasn't going to risk her getting away from him this time. Watched as the man's hands slid right into hers, and she stood staring up at him. He had her. Finally, his gamma actually had control of her. Pulled her right into his chest a moment later, looked relieved to Bradley to finally be able to not only locate this woman, but ease her pain and fear. To hear her sob right into him as he just stood there. Hurt Bradley and Benson more than a little. They knew why she was in pain. Because of them, their screwed-up mate bond. It was likely she'd never allowed anyone to touch her, not ever. Certainly not a wolf, and he understood why. She didn't think everything would be okay. Was a little jealous to see his mate in the arms of another man, but did not interrupt. She needed this moment, was in all likelihood actually bonding in some way with Eddie, her actual gamma. Bradley was not at all surprised to hear real relief in Eddie's voice. Finally, I can find you. The man had searched high and low for this woman. Had thought that he was broken as a gamma. It was likely that deep down, Eddie was worried Piper would always elude him. She was very confused, admitted it. Eddie wanted to take her back to her room. It was likely he knew she was overwhelmed, but at that same time she seemed to desire answers about her confusion. Watched as Eddie looked down at her, take the slightest of steps back, but kept his hands on her arms, kept that contact. There was less southern drawl in his voice, but it was still there, only slight now. She was calm, or as calm as Eddie needed her to be. Asked her exactly what she didn't understand, and he saw her eyes move right to him. He'd stayed on the other side of the room. There was currently a lounge between him and her. He didn't want to lose control with her again. Needed to keep his hands to himself. Just one word. He'd been expecting his name to come from her lips, but yet again it did not him. And then to clarify her statement about not feeling any pains of betrayal, that's why she knew her rejection worked. It would likely seem that way to her. Saw her eyes move back to him. When Eddie offered for Brad to explain that to her himself, it was better for her to hear it from him. He did want to be the one to tell her that. So he explained it to her as best he could. That he'd never touched a single she-wolf since she left, because he didn't want to cause her any more pain, didn't want to risk it, and he had not. She just stood staring at him, trying to decide if she believed him probably. Though no pain of the past 8 years should speak for itself, especially now that she herself knew their bond was still there. It's a lot to take in Piper, he told her, and he knew for her it was. She had run from him already. Hurt by the sight of Hadley on his arm, was likely still trying to believe if that was true in itself. I'm sorry, all touched you like that. I didn't mean to lose control like that. He looked right at his hand, that had been on her neck. The sensation was gone now, and already he missed it. You feel hot, burning hot to me and it. How did he explain it to her? He felt intoxicated just by touching her, sets off my need to, damned near side, but managed to hold it in. He'd wanted to may the hell out of her, and if Eddie had not been in the room. Yelled right at him in that warning tone, that he had lost control and was scaring her. He likely would have mate you. He finally said it was the truth and she needed to hear it, and he honestly wanted to tell her. So he simply did, told her what he believed. I might not be able to scent you, but I can't control myself when I touch you. That is the bond, I'm guessing. How I feel it on my end. He was damned sure it was too. He'd never experienced anything in his life that even came close to how she made him feel. Maybe that's how you knew you were a Whitlock mate. She doesn't feel hot to me, Eddie commented, and Bradley was actually glad to hear that. Another thing that led him to believe she was his mate, openly admitted he'd rip the man's head off if he touched her like that. Heard Eddie's very amused tone, so possessive already, and his man was not wrong about that. Even though he let Eddie take her from the suite, he already knew that yes, he was going to be very possessive, so very protective of her. She'd been through so much, and he needed to make sure that she was looked after now. Had to find a way to stop her from being invisible inside the pack. She did not want to go back to being invisible, like she had been. When he sat and really thought about it, who she was now. Piper Harper led a very public life, was known by lots of humans. Izzy had not been wrong. Piper Harper had never hidden herself. Had been out there in the human world, creating a life where people recognized her and all of the time. She did interviews, both in magazines and on TV, for all to see, likely socialized with the very wealthy, was known not just in the States, but all over the world. She was not invisible to the humans, and that comforted her. She fit into their world, much better than into her own. Felt like everyone in her world had abandoned he, not just the pack, but her own family. She didn't seem to care for the Whitlocks at all, claimed they'd had abandoned her. Bradley frowned, suddenly curious about that. His father had thought that Piper had gone back to her mother's pack, but clearly she had not. Surely someone in the Whitlock family would have felt Jules sever from them and die, been on the lookout for Piper, called his father and asked after the child. Why hadn't they? Alpha Timothy had recognized Aspen's eyes, but had not recognized Piper herself. She was his cousin, but there was no family bond. But cousin could mean twice thrice removed. It could mean anything. Could literally state she was his cousin because she was simply a Whitlock, and so was he, who he claimed to be. Bradley was going to have to ask him, himself. He had no idea what he was going to do about his past with her, could only try and start afresh, he guessed. She hadn't fled the room, likely a good thing, and she had walked out more or less in a calm state, but that could have been Eddie keeping her that way. He didn't know, not really. Eddie strolled back into the room, and he nodded at Brad. She seems confused, but there is not much I can do about that. Worried Brandon was going to see her upset state. When we got back to the room, she's worried it will set Aspen off? Yes. Eddie nodded, and you think I have control issues. You were gone in less than 10 seconds of touching her. Bradley nodded, kind of feels like. She's a very intoxicating drug. The minute I touch her, he shook his head. I'm going to have to watch myself. Yes, I don't think she is ready for that, Brad. Eddie agreed with him. I know, not for a while. How'd Benson feel? Hungry. I guess you could say. Did he want to mark her? Eddie asked, sounded more curious than anything else. I don't know, he definitely wanted us to mate her. He sighed, he's quiet, worried about Harper. That's a whole other issue. Her wolf. Eddie shook his head. I don't know, I could sense her, but I don't think I could reach her, likely retreated all the way back inside of Piper's mind. You can normally feel the wolves? Yes, they actually have less resistance than the human counterparts to my charm. Are the first to feel calm and drawn, want to roll over and submit. Not Harper, barely sensed her. It's odd. Going to take a while is all. Bradley nodded. But at least she admitted she was your mate, and I can tell you she felt the bond. The minute you touched her, Harper left like a shot, and she freaked right out, feeling all that tingly goodness. They really did believe their rejection was in effect, came as a hell of a shock that it wasn't. Still need to get her home, though. Yes, don't rush it, might not be willing yet. Eddie commented quietly. I know she's not. But we can't stay out here forever. I wouldn't advise pushing her. Might see yourself rejected again. I'll not accept it like the last time. Brad shrugged. I'm not giving up my mate without a fight. It's probably going to still be a fight, though hopefully now not a physically one. Did seem like Harper was spoiling for a fight. Brad frowned. She's all aggression, and I know that bothers Benson a lot. Her wolf was in as much pain as Piper was. Eddie sighed. How are you feeling, Eddie? You looked relieved yourself to finally get a hold of her. You have no idea, it is a relief. That woman turned me inside out, but now I got her. Kind of weird, can't use Timber's senses on her at all. Have to actually look at her. I know, it's what I'm doing. Switch off all my wolf senses to focus on her. Hard to do, when it's such a natural thing to do, that it's automatic. Have to actively focus on not using them. Yes, agreed. Eddie nodded, so what now? Do you think she'll bolt? Not likely. She is both Brandon and Izzy to consider. They're her family. Now she knows about your bond. Likely whole a few days. Can't run. She knows that you and I will just track and hunt. There's no point in running. Can't hide from me anymore. What type of watch do you want on her? There's not enough of use to do rotating shifts on all the exits. Do you think Izzy could be convinced to report any movements? Watched Eddie as he really thought about that question. I don't know, to be honest. They're really close. Like sisters, I'd have to say. You could try talking to her, but I know Benson scared her. And she saw your eyes change color, Eddie commented with a nod. Maybe 6-hour shifts at the front of the hotel entrance would do. Bradley sighed and wondered right this minute if he should have taken West up on his offer of extra men, though that plane only seated 9 comfortably, so would have only been able to accept 2 men. Chapter 40. Piper POV. It was a very long night of staring at the ceiling or at the wall as Piper tried to figure out just what the hell had happened. She understood Eddie had been able to use his Gamma's charm on her and keep her calm. She had been able to feel his aura on her all the way back to her suite. Even in the elevator, his hand had been on her the whole time, and she'd not been able to do anything about it. Stupid Gamma and his charm. He'd used all he had on her too. He was so damn strong. She'd had no hope of fighting him off once he'd actually gotten skin-on-skin contact. Annoyed her now, she'd thought being a rogue she'd have some resistance to it, but now she knew differently. As for the other issue? Bradley touching her, and his touch full of those electric sparks, which she had experienced that night with him. She did not know what to do about that. Harper was not talking at all, was lying inside of her mind, appeared to be sleeping, but Piper didn't really think so, just actively ignoring everything. Couldn't feel what Harper felt at all. She had shut herself off. This was not the first time that Piper had seen her like this. It just meant that she was not willing to talk or deal with what they'd both felt last night when Bradley had touched them. All Piper knew was that Harper had fled from her mate as much as Piper had also tried to. Not that she had gotten far, Bradley hadn't wanted to let go. Neither she nor Harper had handled it well at all. But Harper's usual aggression and threats when being touched had not sprung forth. She'd simply just run away to the far recess of Piper's mind. Shut herself down and stayed there, was still there, in fact. There was nothing Piper could do to make her come forward. She would do that only if and when she so chose to. The sun was barely rising, and she was nowhere closer to figuring out what she was supposed to do. She had barely had any sleep, though she knew sleep had come at one point, because she'd had some weird-ass dreams that just went nowhere. Felt like she was trapped in a building and couldn't get out of it, no matter how many times she tried. She was betting on it being related to the turmoil that was currently her life, which appeared to now be spiraling out of her control, and she was rapidly being unable to stop it. Her uncertainty was invading her subconscious mind and causing weird dreams. Piper's bedroom door opened and Brandon climbed onto the bed. It's dawn. He smiled at her. It is. Piper nodded and sat herself up. Why are you up so early? Aspen wants to run. He smiled right at her. Oh, I don't even know where we could run out here in the city. Treadmill too. He asked right away. Seemed to be very excited. Good to see he was happy and not as confused as he was yesterday. I'm actually tired, Brandon. Didn't sleep well. Haha, then we'll win. He grinned right at her, obviously thought this was the right time to actively challenge her. Actually felt Harper lift her head for the first time since dinner last night. She huffed inside Piper's mind, then stood up and stretched herself out. Appeared her wolf was good for the challenge against their son. All right, go and get dressed, she told him, and he was gone off to his room to do so. We've created a little monster, she muttered to Harper as she got out of bed, found her new gym gear and pulled it on, reminded herself to find somewhere to let the boy run out in the woods later, likely going to have to leave the city for that. Could Google it later, glanced at the time. It was barely 0620. She yawned as she made her way to Izzy's room to let her know what was going on. Didn't want her to wake up and think they had run off and left her here. Pushed the door open and stopped dead. Edward was sleeping in that bed with Izzy. She was certain she had told Izzy she didn't want that. She had also not known he was here either. When had he arrived? She did not know, with Harper refusing to be around. She had no wolf hearing to pick up anything. Hey, wake up, she snapped. Watched Edward's eyes snapped open in an instant, alert right away. His eyes shot to her, though he didn't move. Izzy was practically asleep on top of him. Then he smiled at her, mourning Piper. She ignored him. Her eyes moved to Izzy as she rolled off of Edward and looked at her bleary-eyed. I couldn't say no. She watched as Izzy bit her lip guiltily. He was begging me all night, until I caved in. Where are you going? Eddie asked her. Running away, she snapped, annoyed with him. He had used his bond with Izzy to weasel his way into this hotel suite, and she knew it. She had absolutely no idea he was in here. Saw him start to get out of the bed at her words. She's kidding. Izzy put a hand on him. At least the woman had clothes on still. Piper is a dawn running machine. Sweet, we could all stretch our legs. His eyes moved off of Piper and back to his Izzy. Come on, we'll all run. Both Piper and Izzy looked at each other and snorted in amusement. Izzy doesn't run. She turned to leave, likely why you were able to catch her slow ass yesterday. Hey, it was Izzy, but it was only feigned anger and Piper knew it. The girl hated exercise, was just naturally thin. A good metabolism, she guessed. Brandon finally appeared, hopping out of his bedroom, pulling his shoe on, stopped and stared at Edward, who had a very unhappy-sounding Izzy tossed over his shoulder. We're coming too. Edward grinned right at her and then Brandon. Yay! Piper rolled her eyes, reached out for Brandon's hand, who looked right up at her. Is Aunt Izzy really gonna run with us? Piper shook her head, and was at least glad to see Izzy was put down on her own feet in the hallway, referee more like it. She smiled as Izzy hit Edward right in the chest, and then frowned and rubbed her hand. Bet you could run circles around Izzy. Heck yeah, I can. He grinned right up at her, and him too. He pointed at Edward. I'm Eddie. Edward smiled down at Brandon and challenge accepted, young man. I bet I can beat both you and your mom. It was Izzy that laughed now. Good luck. I'll get the coffees for after all you crazy people run. Nope, you will be running to Izzy. Edward informed her. Make me. She stared right at him. Piper knew there was no way he could actually make her. Piper chuckled now. Yeah, Edward, make her. She knew that he couldn't. His gamma charm wouldn't work on her, and there was nothing Izzy hated more than running on a treadmill. She and Brandon could get her to hike occasionally, but never run. Are you going to go and get changed? She asked him as they waited on the elevator. I got clothes coming. Everyone is in on this challenge. Piper glared at him for a moment and then just sighed. Running was her thing, just her or her and Brandon. But his statement meant that he had at some point informed his alpha and the rest of the unit. She had not even thought about that. But should have, she supposed. The whole unit was waiting down in the hotel gym for them. She wondered if they were already down here or had used the stairs to make good time. The elevator had stopped on nearly every floor to let people in. Brandon huffed, sounded, and looked annoyed. He wanted to challenge Harper. It was their thing to run against each other, and now also an Aspen and Harper thing when Aspen was awake. "Morning, Piper." "Brandon," she heard Bradley state as Harrison tossed Edward clothes. "I believe you lost someone last night," she muttered, still annoyed to have woken up to find Edward in her hotel suite. I guess so." "Can't control him. You're aware of that already, I believe." Bradley returned all casual-like it didn't concern him greatly. "So I hear," young Brandon challenged Eddie. Harrison smiled at the boy. "That's my big brother, and I bet you can beat him too. He's real slow." "Hey, watch it." Eddie shot at him as he headed off to get changed. She and Brandon stood waiting on them. They were all stretching together. Why are they all doing that? Brandon asked her. "They don't want to injure themselves," Piper answered him. "We never do that, just jump on and go," and he looked up at her questioningly. Piper smiled. "I'm a natural-born runner, and so are you. They have to train themselves to run like you and I." "Oh," he seemed to think about it for a minute. "Good, I'll beat every one of them then," saw Brandon rub his hands together at the thought of a bigger challenge. Piper leaned right down to his ear and asked quietly, "Is Aspen awake?" "He is." Brandon nodded and smiled right at her. Clearly his wolf was wanting to challenge all of them. "Then get your ass on the treadmill," she tickled him. The pair of them stepped up. She'd had enough of waiting on them. It had been a solid 5 minutes already, and she was bored. "My money's on Piper," Izzy called out. "Traitor," Brandon called right back, only to have Izzy laugh. She watched them all hop onto their treadmills, rolled her eyes at the smirk on all their faces. Yes, they were the Alpha and his unit. But no one knew her or Brandon for that matter. They likely only actually ran once or twice a week during training, and if she recalled correctly for about 30-odd minutes, she doubted much had changed on that. This would be a time challenge, not a sprint to the finish. Let's see who could run the longest. She grinned at Brandon. It was highly possible that even Brandon would outrun one or two of them. Saw Aspen's eyes flicker to the surface up at her, and they were off. He'd never beat her yet, and though she wasn't about to let that start today, she was hoping he was going to kick some Delta and Gamma ass. She was running between Brandon and, no surprise, Bradley on her other side. Brandon had Edward on the other side of him, seeing as the boy had challenged him and Edward had accepted it. The man himself was a constant torment of chatting to Brandon till Brandon snarled at him to shut up and just run. About 15 minutes in, Piper nearly laughed. She knew Brandon hated that. She did it to him sometimes too. Her eyes moved to Izzy, who was sitting not too far away on a piece of gym equipment, comfortable and cross-legged. She was on her phone, had a slight frown on her face. "Izzy, what's wrong?" she asked, full of concern, knowing it would distract Edward, and boy didn't it. The man damn near fell off the back of his treadmill as his head whipped around to look at Izzy. "Arg, Philip called me." Izzy rolled her eyes and sounded bored. And Edward was gone, off the treadmill before it even stopped. "I win," Brandon yelled. "You lose, Eddie." He sounded very happy about winning. Piper snorted, fully amused. She knew Philip had not called. Izzy was over there on the work mobile, not her personal phone. She was likely just working, reading emails, but knew it would distract Edward herself. He must have mentioned something to allow Izzy to know it would work to distract him. "You play dirty." She heard Harrison laugh behind her. "I didn't do anything, and she hadn't, simply had posed a question." It was actually Izzy who had played dirty. The woman was looking to see her mate get beaten by Brandon, a little payback for dragging her backside out of bed at this hour in all likelihood. Hit the 30-minute mark, and she could see Brandon was pacing himself nicely, would run for an hour alongside her without Aspen, wondered how strong Aspen was. His eyes turned to hers, and Aspen was right there on the surface. His wolf smiled right up at her. Piper chuckled. Harper hadn't even joined in the run yet, might not at all with Bradley running alongside them. Guess she would find out soon enough. Harper was good and strong, had lots of stamina, but her real fun was running at full speed. She was fast. That's why Aspen couldn't win in a race. 1 hour in, she heard Harrison call it quits. "I win again." Brandon grinned right up at her, so excited. She smiled right back at him, happy for not just Brandon, but Aspen also. Though she knew they were coming up on his limit, or would be soon. Piper, however, had learned to run a very long time ago. Running had been a good escape for her as a child. She would run till she was utterly exhausted, and there was no pain from being alone, had been able to run the entire outer perimeter of the pack by the time she was 11. And had continued to run as her form of escape, pushing herself constantly till she just couldn't run anymore, built up her endurance and stamina over all the years. Could run in human form for hours. Her longest to date was 3 hours on her own without Harper. Knew if Harper joined her could likely run for much longer. Also knew Harper wouldn't join until she was good and ready herself. Then would push her fully. But they had not had to do that in a long time. Turned her eyes on Bradley and then Cooper. They both looked quite comfortable and relaxed, as did she. We'll see, she thought absently, knew that they were the two strongest in the pack, possibly only matched by their own fathers. Brandon and Aspen were the next ones to call it quits, and Aspen snarled right at her, all annoyed, as usual at her, and then stalked off away at 1 hour and 20 minutes in. "You're only young," she told him, but still chuckled to herself as she watched him march himself right over to Izzy and plop into her lap to sulk, muttering, "It's only a matter of time." She and Harper were actually fully amused by him. It was likely only a matter of time. And when that day came, they were actually going to love it. "A bit of a sore loser," Bradley commented, obviously watching the boy as well. She turned her eyes on him, raised an eyebrow at him, probably takes after you in that department. She shot right at him, saw him blink in complete shock, but heard his entire unit snort in amusement, and she wondered if she had hit the nail on the head with that one. Turned back to her treadmill and focused on her running once more. 2 hours in, and Cooper bailed with "and I'm done," sounded annoyed that he could not outrun her. Likely the beta in him didn't like being outdone either. Watched him walk over to the rest of the unit. He came back a moment later and handed her and Bradley a bottle of water each. She smirked right at him, just like he had when he'd gotten on that treadmill to start with. Sipped it only. She didn't need to feel water sloshing around inside her belly, or hear it for that matter. Could be a very distracting thing. Felt Harper actively step up and joined in the challenge at 2.5 hours, apparently didn't want to lose. They both knew not many could outrun an alpha wolf, and Piper was determined to push him harder than he had ever been before. Harper, on the other hand, she got the distinct impression she was going to make that man run till he could not run anymore. They would be unlikely to actually beat him in a run that was all speed, but it was completely possible that they could outrun him in this endurance, long-distance run, though his wolf would have stamina in spades. Was his human body used to running constantly for hours on end as hers was, it was unlikely. In his wolf form, he probably could run all day, but she was willing to bet that his human muscles were screaming at him. She was starting to feel the burn herself, and was likely going to need one hell of a nap afterwards. On the bright side, she'd likely get that desperately needed sleep she'd not gotten last night. 2 hours and 45 minutes, and she heard him drag in a breath. Harper snorted, amused at the very sound. Oh, it was on. She could really feel her wolf wanted to beat him now, was itching inside of Piper to crank the speed up all the way and push him past his limit. We can beat him if he suddenly has to run at top speed. She heard Harper, turned her eyes on the man himself. He was a lather of sweat and his breathing was off. He was starting to wear down. She could pick it all up. All those telltale signs that he was tiring out. "Edward," she called out, and then turned her eyes on the Gamma. "I'd like a real challenge. Come over here and crank up your boss's treadmill all the way, when I say so." "Sure, Piper." He sounded fully amused by her words. Felt Bradley's eyes on her, did not look at him, looked right at Edward as he stepped over on 5. She smiled right at him. Well, Harper did, as she pushed forward all the way. saw Edward start to laugh. He knew they were not about to lose, and then he counted them down. And it zero-tapped Bradley's treadmill speed button until it was maxed out at 20 km an hour, as did she with hers. "Kick his ass, Mom." Brandon was yelling all super excitedly at her. "Oh, I intend to." It was all Harper, and she was not even tired. Hadn't even stepped up into the challenge until 20 minutes ago, ran flat out on that treadmill, stretching out her legs real good, really actually enjoyed running at top speed. It took all of 15 minutes for Bradley and his wolf to be done. His wolf snarled at hers as he stalked away, unhappy he had been beaten by hers. Piper snorted, a bit of a sore loser. She mimicked his words about Brandon. Both she and Harper were fully amused. Eased her treadmill back down and jogged on for another 5 minutes at a slower pace, then simply hopped off the treadmill. Brandon ran right over to her. "You're awesome, Mum. You beat them all." "Never a doubt, son." She winked right at him. "You'll run like me one day too." "Sweet. I'm gonna kick all their asses too." He looked so excited about it. "Breakfast," she heard Bradley state. He still sounded put out to her as he stood up from where he had gone and sat down with the rest of them, while she jogged on a bit more just to put all of them in their place. "Your boss is a sore loser, I see." She smiled at Edward. "I have a name, Piper. Use it." Bradley snapped right at her and stalked off out of the gym altogether. She nearly laughed, strolled out of the gym and back to her room to shower and crash out. She needed a good nap, not food. Harper was also feeling good at the moment, showed them up, liked putting that whole unit in their place, especially it seemed the alpha himself. Sat to eat when Izzy called her to let her know it was here, I bet right. Izzy smiled at her. "But what's with all the growling everyone does?" "That's weird." "Not for them?" "And doesn't Edward growl at you?" "Yeah." She smiled. "I kinda like that." She actually chuckled. "Mr. Drake did not like losing to you, Piper. Imagine that man doesn't like losing to anyone. Let alone me, a tiny little woman and all. She was only 5'6", tiny compared to him." Everyone was laughing now. "I need a nap. Hardly got any sleep last night," she yawned. "What, you run like that and on little sleep?" "How much?" "And them 2 hours maybe." Piper shrugged. "Helps that I have." Stopped that sentence. Had been about to say Harper, been running every day since I was 10. That I have a bone to pick with him, and that he likely doesn't run every day. Doubt any of them do. "Well, you got along with him today," Izzy commented. "That's a start, I guess, if you can call it that." "I'm going to." Izzy smiled right at her. "Might not be so bad." Piper didn't say anything. She'd ticked Bradley off this morning. Not only had she beat him with apparent ease, he'd snapped at her about using his name, a little odd. Didn't bother her not to use it. Yawned again. "I'm gonna go crash out. I'll need to go and talk to Devin this afternoon. Call him and make that arrangement. Please, Izzy." "What for?" "Promotion, or have you already forgotten Edward will want you in Montana when he leaves? So will you be." "I don't have to go right away." She shook her head. "They'll need to get back, have things to take care of, Izzy. Will not want to be out here for days on end." She hugged Brandon and smiled down at him. "You ran amazingly today." He grinned right at her, proud of himself, and she was also proud of him today. Was curious if he would have been able to outrun Edward. It did seem possible. Harrison was his brother, and it was clear they did not run like she and Brandon did. Crawled right into her bed and crashed out. That run, it seemed, was exactly what she needed to pull sleep towards her. It had also cleared her mind. The only thing she or Harper had thought about the whole time was beating them and nothing else.